Yeah! Gah, 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 gah! Oh! Hello?
Is this Jordan?
Yeah. How do you know my name?
I know a lot of things.
Okay. Well, I'm about to go film a pretty great internet video, so...
Do you like internet videos?
Yeah, some. A lot of them are kind of predictable.
What's your favorite?
Oh man, there's this one where it's like a real cat, but then it has a human mouth and like a human voice. It is quite silly.
Do you like the ones by Dr. Jordan Breeding?
I mean, some. A lot of them are pretty predictable. It's like Jordan gets tied up or otherwise indisposed somewhere while some villain from afar taunts him. It's all a little played out.
What if I played out your entrails after I stabbed you like a fish?
I don't think you said that right.
Do what I say or I'll kill everybody you love.
Fine, what do I have to do?
All you have to do is watch it.
Yeah, all the Scream movies? Yeah, I get it, man. I've been here before.
Also, you have to murder Dave.
What?
Hey, it's called tact, you Greg.
Well, here we are, Dave. You and me, just a couple of bros making a video and having fun. Anyway, probably fitting that Scream begins with, well, screaming. Even more fitting, Drew Barrymore's sweater. Looks like it fits? Great. She answers what I assume is a phone, even though it's got a cord and attached to a wall. Must be charging. There's a creepy voice on the other end of the line, but it appears to have called the wrong number, so she hangs up. Then creepy voice calls back, and friend, they do this little song and dance approximately 30 times.
Hello? Take it easy. Hello? See ya. Hello?
Don't hang up on me.
Yes? Well, dial someone else, okay? Listen, ass! I'm calling the police! Ah!
If this happened to me, I would simply stop picking up the phone, or I would use that phone to call the police or my biggest, beefcakiest boyfriend, whichever was more readily available. To be fair,
To be fair.
the creepy voice isn't as obviously creepy to Barrymore as it would be to literally anybody else.
Listen, ass!
Whenever you can go out into the rain, do not miss the opportunity!
No, you listen, you little bitch.
The scene helps establish that the movie takes place in the distant past, when people not only answered but enjoyed calls from unknown numbers.
I will you.
And to be fair, maybe not too creepy voice seems kind of fun and flirty.
I'm sorry, I guess I dialed the wrong number.
Wants to know her name and riff about scary movies, and even offers a fun little hot take on the Nightmare on Elm Street film series,
I like that movie.
which is directed by Wes Craven, who also directed this movie and was the subject of a video by me somewhere. Won't say where. Eventually, however, Barrymore tires of all this talking about horror movies and grills some popcorn so she can go watch a horror movie. This forces the caller to admit that he can see Barrymore right now, which wigs her out, so she... The caller says some mean things about doing to her insides what he would do to a fish that he would like to eventually eat.
Hello, little fella.
And she threatens to call the police, but like, just do it. Just do it, babe.
Just do it like night.
But no, instead she threatens to call in her beefcakiest boyfriend, and so far so good with my original plan, but oops, looks like that beefcake is medium rare, and that he's covered in blood and tied up. Metaphor doesn't quite work, but neither do the boyfriend's escape attempts. Fun fact, you can prevent duct tape from sticking to your mouth by wetting your lips with your tongue, which is why I always keep my lips moist 24/7. Kidnap this. The caller pulls an evil Alec Trebek, or a regular, albeit trivia-obsessed Jigsaw, depending on your preferred cultural references, and demands Barrymore answer some horror movie trivia. If she gets it right, Beefy Boy goes free. Get it wrong, and he will not. First, he asks the name of the killer in Halloween. She gets it right. Then he asks her the killer on Friday the 13th, but she gets it wrong because it's not
John C.
Because it's not
Jason!
It's his admittedly not the best mom.
Oh, there's Mother now.
The boyfriend is gutted, and really, it's Barrymore's fault for not watching my long story short on Friday the 13th that'll release next month. If I get my together. I have a new baby, okay? And I'm only halfway through showing him all the classic horror movies. He's not fully educated yet.
My father has always been my greatest champion and my hero.
The caller asked Barrymore one final question.
What door am I at?
And apparently the answer is... Barrymore finally grabs a knife while the popcorn just goes crazy. And she fights hand to hand with some goober in a ghost face mask, which I don't know if that's a thing that already exists or is something that was invented in this movie, and I don't want to Wikipedia the answer.
I'm sorry. That's the wrong answer.
So I'm just gonna call it a ghost face mask, and I don't know why.
The Ghostface killer was in Wu-Tang, right?
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Well, great. What, do you know everything? You want to do this, man?
Say peace to cats who rock Mac knowledge.
He definitely looks kind of freaky, but man, it takes him a long time to kill her. He grabs her through a window, gets clobbered, stabs and chokes her, gets kneed in the cock and balls, which probably caused him to make the ghost face under the mask. He's probably like, oh, my cock and balls. Finally, he stabs her to death right as Barrymore's parents get home, just in time to see her hanging from a tree. Worst of all, the popcorn is burnt to shit. Rest in peace, popcorn.
Corn Pop was a bad dude.
Cut from there to what I have to assume is an Elon Musk fetish. Like, oh yeah, just tappy. I want to have your computer, baby.
Wario.
But Elon's not the only one, because some boy named Billy with just the stiffest hair breaks in through the window.
Damn, we're in a tight spot.
Then Sydney's dad breaks in. It's like, man, this is the start of a morally dubious but disturbingly popular porn.
Is it okay if I really try to make it look sexy?
But thankfully, the dad merely announces he's leaving on a trip. Then, to completely obliterate any remaining sexual tension, Billy offers up a convoluted TV edit exorcist metaphor to both explain his and Sydney's relatively sexless relationship and also continue the meta theme of horror movie that won't shut up about horror movies. Sydney's like, I appreciate that you aren't just outright saying that you're a sad little horn dog, and as a reward, you could do some over-the-clothes stuff, which is okay, I guess. They fondle for a bit, and then he leaves, and she flashes him her boobies, which is very good, I guess. I wouldn't know, because the movie doesn't show me, but Dave said he'll try and draw a titty composite for us after the shoot, so stay tuned. If you sign up for my Patreon, maybe Dave will send you a titty composite. That's why we keep Dave around.
Lace, the final brassiere.
The next day at high school, cops and news vans and are everywhere trying to figure out what to do about dead Barrymore. One such news lady is salacious and sensual Gail Weathers, who I'd love to have blow a blustery gale through my nethers, is the first joke I wrote, and I'm not changing it. So sorry everyone, these videos are so long. I've already made too many of them, and it's only like the third one, and I have 3 kids. Did you know that? Anyway, the cops interview Sydney, and I'm delighted to report that one of the cops is the dude from C-Spot Run, and the principal is Gene Cousineau.
I want you to stay away from my family.
We quickly learn that Gene's the best principal ever because he tells everybody he loves them over the loudspeaker.
Your principal loves you.
Back outside, Sydney and her friends Tatum, who is for sure a 10, Stu, Randy, as well as Billy, all sit around and discuss such topics as whether a woman could be a killer.
It takes a man to do something like that.
And that thing where one exhibits adroitness and sensitivity in dealing with others or with difficult issues.
It's called tact, you rag.
In general, they're shockingly unworried about the whole brutal murder of a fellow student thing. Just as shocking, Stu's tongue, it's too long. Or maybe it's just long enough, right, Dave? Dave loves a long tongue through his nethers, a blustery tongue-nado. And that was the last that we ever saw of Dave. Sydney heads back to her extremely huge rich person house to pack for an overnight with Tatum, but apparently she's never packed before because she just carries around a wad of loose clothes like there's several bags of chips. Also, it turns out that her mom was raped and murdered a year ago, which renders both her dad's decision to leave his daughter home alone and her friend's decision to completely write off and mock a recent murder absolutely insane, right? Sydney is surrounded by more ass and a proctologist working backstage at a political convention.
Looks like those clowns in Congress did it again.
All that not packing has worn her out though, and Sid falls asleep until she's awakened by a phone call from Tatum offering to show her Tom Cruise's paused penis.
Oh, I just like to watch number 33 run around in those tight black pants.
And then almost immediately another call, but this from a dude who wants nothing to do with Tom or his penis, so you know he is crazy. Yes! Sid thinks it's Randy because Randy works at a movie store and is always talking about horror movies and big breasts. But then the caller brings up her mom's death, which suggests it's not Randy, or it is Randy, but he's being mean. And then the killer jumps out of the closet with a knife and they tussle a bit, and man, this guy really sucks at killing women. Like, I don't want to claim I'm some woman killing expert, but it shouldn't be that hard, right? And speaking of hard, how many times can one guy get kicked in the nads before they rupture? And speaking of rupturing nads, Sydney somehow calls the police with her computer, and the killer leaves, and almost immediately Billy shows up in the window, but a cell phone falls out of his pocket, leading her to believe that he is the killer and just good at quick changing. So she runs downstairs and out the door and right into the willing arms of what appears to be a killer cop, but is just in fact the guy from C-Spot Run. Deputy Dewey. He's holding the killer mask, but there's nothing to suggest he himself is the killer unless... But no. They arrest Billy on the rock-solid evidence of owning his cell phone, despite his claims of innocence.
A year from now, every metropolitan area of the nation will have cellular phone service.
We learn Dewey is Tatum's brother. Hot. Then Gail shows up with a cameraman who's apparently named Jesus, but they're too late to get anything good, so Gail commits a cardinal sin by mocking our Lord and Savior for his recent weight gain.
Move your fat, tub of lard ass now!
At the station, the cops reveal they can't find Sydney's dad. Probably because these are the kind of cops with literal Dunkin' Donuts on their desk alongside novelty toy handcuffs and a comic book about being a cop. Pretty whimsical stuff for the guys protecting a town that recently experienced a murder rape within the last year. Maybe they're quiet quitting.
Damn it, Dewey.
Elsewhere, they interrogate Billy and demand to know why he had a cell phone, but all they really need to do is check to see if his balls are swollen and or ruptured. And that's even before considering how hard he got blue-balled the night before. I mean, his balls, man.
You probably have to ride in the back seat because his nuts would ride shotgun.
Tatum picks Sydney up, but they're immediately accosted by Gail. Not for long, though, because Sydney punches the shit out of her for apparently writing a book about her mom's case and also spreading rumors that the guy they did convict of murdering her, a dude named Cotton Weary, is actually innocent, and the killer's swollen testicles remain large and at large.
Just leave me alone.
Later, Sid gets another call from the killer, but it's fine because the cop brother runs around with his piece out. That should do it. The next day, they make a big deal of showing the flag not at half-mast because it's not like a soldier died, just a poor, dumb, former child star. And immediately...
Was he wearing any clothes? No.
Sid talks to Gail again, just to clarify that Gail thinks her mom did have sex with Cotton, but that he didn't kill her, suggesting she was having an affair. Thanks, Gail. Then Gail hits on Dewey with some extremely pedophilic pickup lines and...
You don't look a day over 12, except in that upper torso area.
And it works! I'm uncomfortable! Billy is released because phone records prove he never made any calls to Sid's house, and he rushes to Sid to tell her that she's being a prude and that he needs to, get in there, and she needs to get over her mom's death.
I was in jail.
Sid is not super thrilled by this, so Billy explains, okay, that was
a bad analogy.
But I don't think coercing grieving underage girls into sex counts as an analogy per se.
That's a metaphor!
But I'll bring it up to the next sexy but problematic English teacher I run into.
They loathed you at school.
Speaking of running into things, Sid heads to the bathroom for a classic while session. That is, she overhears two girls sharing gossip about how they think Sydney is the killer while they blow butt chunks, unaware that Sid's in the room with them. This happens in basically every movie, even though bathrooms like this are by definition public places. Even if the room is empty, your nemesis could be listening outside the door, and yet for some reason, movies think bathrooms are the perfect place to vent frustrations about coworkers, detail vital plans, and make death threats in between dirty squirts. Everything from Pitch Perfect to Harold and Kumar to Booksmart to freaking Spider-Man Homecoming includes scenes like this. And of course, the one thing that should make you think twice before shouting dangerous secrets over your confidant's wet farts in real life actually happens in movies all the time. If you're talking trash in a public bathroom, there's an 86% chance the subject of said trash talk is 8 feet away. And even she isn't alone because the goddamned handicap stall whispers her name, although she does counter by calling the handicap stall pathetic, which is questionable. But it's okay because then the killer hops out and attacks. She immediately escapes though. Again, not that I'm condoning or encouraging anyone, but this guy just really sucks wet farts when it comes to killing women. Elsewhere, Principal Gene expels 2 asshole kids who are running around in ghost face masks as a prank. He then suspends classes and a curfew is instituted. Wow, cancel culture strikes again. Elon needs to buy this high school. On their way home from being canceled, Stu offers up a pretty sick Snoop Dogg impersonation. Tatum and Stu decide to throw a big ass party to celebrate the murders and the curfew, the 1-year anniversary of Sid's mom getting murdered and raped. I don't know, but Sid hesitates a little bit saying yes, you know, because she was almost murdered the night before. And again, it's the 1-year anniversary of her mom's rape and murder. But Tatum says,
come on, Sid. For me?
Yes, because she's the one who needs help right now. To drive this point home, Tatum attempts to convince Sydney that her dead mom was definitely a slut, so maybe she deserved to be murdered? Think about it, Sid. Now that the kids are gone, Principal Gene plays with himself in the closet for a bit before getting murdered by what I can only assume is free speech and the free market and the entire concept of freedom. I mean, there's gotta be a bald eagle under that mask. Cancel this.
Up yours, woke moralist.
The boys head to the video rental store to check out a film from the
mass murder section.
And it's pretty wild to think they'd have an entire section committed to mass murder, but we've got an entire country committed to it, so maybe it's not that wild.
From my cold, dead hands.
They have yet another discussion about horror movies and sort of reason through who should be the killer based on established tropes before giving up and screaming, "Everybody's a suspect!" Except that's not movie rules, that's just kind of real life, right? No time to think about that though, because everybody's rushing home to make curfew. It's clearly like, what, 4 at best? The sun is out. You've got plenty of time, weirdos. Also, what do you think is gonna happen if you don't hit curfew? Is Deputy Dewey gonna plug you if you're still in the coffee shop at like 9:03? Speaking of, Dewey and the police chief discuss the revelation that the phone calls that Sid has received from the killer actually came from her still missing dad's phone. They also chomp on ice cream and a cigarette respectively, and it's actually a pretty delightful little gag. Sydney and Tatum shop for party shit, and Sydney betrays the depths of her gaslightedness when she reveals she's
sexually anorexic.
And Billy has been
so patient with me
when it comes to waiting to fully penetrate the young and incredibly traumatized girl. Chivalry? It ain't dead, Dave. It's named Billy and its hair. Poke a hole in.
It's a bad analogy.
Dewey drives the girls to the party despite the curfew and drops them off despite the curfew, and they're also followed by Gail in her van, also despite the curfew. But it's okay because they get out of the van very quietly, despite the music at the party absolutely freaking blasting. They're still too loud somehow, I guess, because Dewey sees them and invites Gail into the party, despite the curfew, and despite the fact that they are both much older than these kids.
How do you do, fellow kids?
And also, there's a goddamned curfew, and a serial killer on the loose, and these cops are bad.
Take them away, toys.
It's okay though, because Dewey is a cool cop. He'll probably let you hold his gun if you ask nicely.
A bunch of kids cutting it loose.
Gail is less cool though, and she plants a camera to film these kids just in case they do something horny enough for her dark web clients to purchase with Bitcoin. Web 3. Tatum grabs some beer from the garage fridge all by herself, but it's okay because she's armed with nipples sharp enough to kill a man. The killer attacks her anyway, and again, it's a pretty damn close fight. She bashes him with a fridge door, and hucks a beer at his poor abused dick. And she tries escaping through the garage doggy door, but realistically, she'd have a better chance just standing there and fighting. I mean, this guy's absolute garbage at hand-to-hand. But no, she gets halfway out and the killer opens the garage door, crushing her, which is admittedly pretty rad. Later, Billy shows up to the party and Stu gets punched in the dick. Just like the killer? Is this foreskin shadowing? Well, Billy takes Sid to Stu's parents' room to continue to discuss the fact that they're not having enough sex, and guys, it's okay to just not have sex. You're legally children. It'll be all right. But no. Sid jumps right to being like, I wish my life was a porno, and Billy's like, it's all a movie. And they start making out weirdly, but also sadly. Downstairs, Randy does what I always did at parties and has no sex while explaining the unwritten rules of how to survive a horror movie, which are apparently 1, 1, never have sex, which is great news for Dave. 2, never drink or do drugs, which is great news for, I don't know, Arby's, which I don't think sells either of those things. I mean, not counting the secret menu, of course.
Arby's now has Coke.
And 3, never say I'll be right back, which is great news for anybody who is not the Terminator.
I'll be back.
We then cut back to Sid and Billy, and they are still just in the fondling phase after at least 45 minutes of Halloween runtime. Say what you will about Billy, but he is apparently in no rush to finish foreplay. That said, all the foreplay doesn't appear to have led to a satisfying sexual experience for Billy. We've all been there. Well, I mean, Dave has. The party abruptly ends, however, when all the kids learn the principal has been murdered and the body left on the football field. But please don't think that this means that they're gonna go mourn or prepare a funeral. They run out the door like they're going to mutilate and or defile his body.
Let's go over there before they pry him down.
Hey, this is a weird town. Or it would be if they weren't in Northern California. Pretty par for the course.
And I'd expect everybody to do everything.
Dewey and Gail just learned that Sid's dad's car has been found and abandoned, and Dewey asks Gail if she wants to go find maybe a dead body with him, because wouldn't that be romantic and very Stand By Me?
I'm not taking it.
And she says, sure, why not? Because this town is weird. And then they almost get hit by the aforementioned car of necro-teens, but no harm, no foul, because they jump out of the way and right into love. And also to where the dad's car is. Back at the house, the kids are still aglow with the post-coital light. And Billy gets murdered. So hard that he doesn't even have a chance to pound the killer's testicles a bit. Sydney runs out and appears to lock the killer in Stu's parents' bedroom. Why do his parents have a lock on the outside of their door? Is that a kink thing? Are they secretly werewolves? And if not, why not? No, seriously, tell me, I want to try it. Unfortunately, she runs directly into the family's creepy-ass hanging doll room, which, besides the aforementioned creepy-ass hanging dolls, has the unfortunate distinction of being a room with no exit.
Damn, we're in a tight spot.
Except via the window. She slips and falls, but thankfully lands on the family's pillow boat. You know, a boat made out of pillows, so she's fine. And that's why every family this Christmas deserves a pillow boat. My pillow boat. Get yours today. Bundle it with a creepy-ass hanging doll and you'll get a 50% discount. While this is presumably very loudly going on, Randy sits downstairs and, well, very loudly talks to the TV, trying to convince Jamie Lee Curtis to turn around.
You know,
of course, he himself needs to turn around and face his would-be killer, but thankfully, the killer doesn't kill him for some reason. I mean, the meta reason is probably that his breasts are too small. We'll have Dave draw a composite of what they may look like and send it to you on Patreon. Sid runs to the news van, which is a good idea until the newsman named Jesus gets sliced, which I'm assuming is a cutting commentary on the waning influence of religion in modern society, and also it forces Sid to crawl out the back of the van and keep running. Speaking of running and the news, here's Gail running around, and she is all legs, baby. Ooh. Dewey runs inside to figure out what's going on while Gail heads to the van. Once inside, she beats the shit out of Randy with a cell phone because Randy just showed up. And then she struggles to drive, you know, what with the camera guy's blood just fogging up the windshield.
Usually the blood gets off at the second floor.
By the way, when did the killer have the time and energy to lug that canonically fat man up onto the roof, and to what end? Unclear. Just like the blood on the windshield, which causes Gail to crash the van because she almost runs over Sid. Full circle, tongue nada. Sid apparently thinks Gail is dead and doesn't even bother to check, and instead heads back to the house to reveal Dewey. Stab. She tries to take Dewey's cop truck, but too late realizes that the killer has the keys, resulting in a very silly game of lock-unlock until he comes in through the back seat, grabs her, and again gets kicked off. I mean, this guy is weak as hell. Sid runs to the porch, grabs Dewey's gun, and is immediately approached by Randy and Stu, who both appear similarly injured and both apparently want Sid's shiny new piece. She declines their offers and locks them both outside. Surprisingly, Billy is still alive too, but very shitty at navigating stairs. Sid hands Billy the gun and he immediately shoots Randy with it and reveals himself to be the Ghostface killer. You can talk about more implications of this in a second, but in this exact moment, that means that he threw himself down the stairs for literally nothing. Either that or he did legitimately just trip and fall down the stairs like a clumsy ass.
It's a witch hunt.
But anyway, as it turns out, the blood all over his shirt is fake, and double twist, Stu and Billy have been working together this whole time with the help of a voice modulator. And not only have they been killing all these people, they're also responsible for murdering Sid's mom and framing Cotton. Why? Well, because Sydney's mom was a bit slutty, and she slept with Billy's dad, causing Billy's mom to walk out on them. Stu, for his part, has no motivation other than peer pressure, because the real message of Scream is to not give in to peer pressure.
How do you do, fellow kids?
And how did they learn to get so good at murdering? Well, by watching movies, of course. Not sure how watching a horror movie would make it significantly easier to frame people for murders you intend to commit, but it's worth a shot. Also, twist, they abducted Sid's dad and used his phone the whole time, and their intention is to frame him for all these murders. To help solve that narrative, Billy and Stu stab each other, which, just like falling down the stairs, feels like a little unnecessary and a little painful and a little bit of an extra step in their plan that probably could have used a couple rewrites, but then, oh, shit. Gail bursts in with the gun that Stu had stupidly left on the counter, but oh, shit. She doesn't know how to turn off the safety. So they kick her to the ground and disarm her because, oh, now these guys get good at fighting women. But then, oh, shit, that's just enough distraction for Sid and her dad to sneak away and call the police. Also, yeah, Stu is dying because Billy stabbed him way too much.
I can hit me with the phone, Dad!
Even worse, Billy frantically searches for Sid and her dad in the couch pillows. Ah! Now, Sid seems resourceful, but I doubt she had enough time to sew herself into the sofa.
Oh, great, now you...
She did apparently have enough time to dress herself up as the killer and stab Billy with an umbrella. But again, why? What's the advantage of dressing like the killer? Surely it's harder to see out of the mask than not, and it's not like Billy's gonna see her coming out of the closet and be like, oh, thank God, it must be Stu. I thought it was Sid in there. Ah, no, I'm stabbed. Just a weird feint, unless the mask gives the wearer magic murder powers. Yes, it explains everything.
Okay.
Oh, and then Stu attacks, so Sid drops a TV on his head, which is probably a metaphor for watching too many horror movies or something, because later career Wes Craven is pissed at media response to his movies.
Did you call me?
And he'll drop a whole damn theater on anybody who questions his dedication to continue making slasher movies. Anyway, Billy gets up again, and so does Gail, and Gail shoots him for real finally, and then Randy shows up and is like, just so you know, he's gonna get up again, and oh, and hey, Dewey is still alive too, and Gail does a sick-ass news story on all the brutal murders, and then we get one last ghost face shot for some reason before the most terrifying scene in the entire movie. Weinstein worked on this movie, starring several young women? Ruh-roh. Okay, knowing what we know now, just a couple of quick observations. Firstly, how was Billy even able to have sex with Sid, considering his balls were probably pancake flat with the consistency of feta cheese? Like, crepe flat.
A savory breakfast crepe.
Secondly, I do actually like that the movie foreshadows the double killer twist with the two kids getting expelled for both pretending to be the killer. That's it. Let's move on. Oh my God, this video sucks. It is never gonna be a viral hit. Everybody knows that a successful internet video has 1, a hook in the first 3 seconds, 2, a tease for the ending, 3, is made by Mr. Beast and or somebody with boobs, or maybe 4, like if you put a cat in it, but my cat has terrible boobs. I just want this video to hit so that everybody can see that, you know, I had to kill Dave. I've got it. Everybody loves TikTok. I'll make some shorts content. Man, that'll really crush in the algo.
It's a dumbass white movie about some dumbass white girls getting their white asses cut the f up.
Scream 2 starts out all funky like. It introduces us to a theater sporting a bunch of ghost face decor and screening a movie called Stab. In line for said movie is Niobe and Mike Tomlin.
Wasn't me. Okay, wasn't me.
Niobe complains that the horror genre excludes black people, to which Tomlin replies that so do rom-coms. Like, yeah, I think pretty much any mainline genre film in the 90s is gonna be very Julia Roberts and Styles heavy.
This must seem terrible to you.
They get inside and people are goddamn pumped for this movie. The crowd is full of morons dressed like Ghostface, like he's Captain America or some shit.
No.
Which just further proves Niobe's point that they're which just further proves Niobe's point that they've suddenly found themselves in the whitest place in the world.
What's a dumbass white spot?
Can you imagine them letting you wear full masks and run around with knives in the theater in 2023? Well, I mean, I guess it depends on how big the mask is, and really guns are a larger issue these days, but it still feels very dangerous. Oh, and this Stab movie, it's based on a book Gail wrote about the events of the first movie. Meta! Heather Graham plays Drew Barrymore, which is a huge missed opportunity to have Drew Barrymore play Drew Barrymore, like, speaking of, Julia Roberts pretending to play Julia Roberts in Ocean's 12.
She wasn't in 4 Weddings and a Funeral.
The cold open of this movie basically becomes the cold open of the last movie, with the added twist of Niobe screaming at the screen.
Bitch, hang the phone up and star 69 his ass. Damn.
But she quickly tires of this and demands money from her boyfriend to purchase popcorn. Then she, orders popcorn, dicks around, and then her boyfriend jumps out. Then he goes to watch a bunch of bros just pissing away, and they're missing 90% of this movie. Although counterpoint, this is the single worst movie-going experience of all time. So the pissers are probably the real winners here. But wait, it gets worse. Mike Tomlin is tired of waiting for the bros to finish draining the old snakes. Am I right, Dave? So he heads into a stall and gets immediately glory holed in the face.
The old glory hole!
To death! Okay, so the movie literally kills the black guy first. Despite all this self-aware discussion of how horror movies don't treat black characters well, they still just go ahead and do exactly what horror movies always do. Not the most progressive thing in the world. Wes, what'd you call me? It reads like a filmmaking 101 student wrote this with the most punchable smirk on his face.
Harvard,
Even worse, an actual killer sits down next to Niobe and tricks her into thinking that he's her boyfriend, and also tricking her into thinking that she's got a chance to live until the end of this cold open. And despite being stabbed 1,000,000 times, she crawls right in front of the movie screen and screams, which, look, this is Dave's thought, but it feels like a commentary on how some black people talk a bit too loud during horror movies. Of course she made her death such a big deal and all about her, and, instead of just letting people watch the movie in peace, is what Dave said to me a few minutes ago before we turned on the camera. I was like, I don't know, Dave, that feels like a stretch. And Dave was like, no, that's definitely what this movie's saying to me. Dave, the person who is me and has experienced this a lot, is very mad about it.
Bitch.
I like this bit.
Should probably stop including his thoughts in my scripts, make him feel like he's part of the process.
Jordan and Dave, 100% white-owned production company.
Getting their white asses cut.
But anyway, moving on to the white people this movie is actually about. We now see a passed out Sydney sporting half as much hair and shirt as she should. She's a big girl in college now with caller ID that lets her screen whether her gentleman callers are actually serial killers or just more dickheads pumped about the opening weekend release of Stab, which is kind of based on her life.
Hope you enjoyed the dumbass white movie.
Oh, and hey, Sid has a black roommate who tells her to
move your ass, okay?
So that's helpful for motivational purposes. Unless you think this sequel would finally move away from talking about horror movies and violence on TV and all that meta-ness, here's a big fat discussion from attractive teens about the moral majority and how on-screen violence doesn't equal IRL murder and how movies aren't responsible for people's actions. And oh, here's Randy sporting terrible facial hair and a totally hot take about how some sequels, sometimes they suck.
Thank you, Ridley Scott rules.
I think Wes was a very insecure man. Here is Randy doing an accent that feels offensive.
And would have been a good one, too.
And also, here's Sid's new and totally not a killer, okay? Boyfriend Derek of Kangaroo Jack and Dave's Daydreams fame. No shame in it, Dave. Look at that cake of beef.
Great.
Speaking of, whatever happened to Jerry O'Connell? Oh, he's been acting nonstop all this time, even voicing Superman in DC's animated movies for, wow, 5 years and main casting on Star Trek Lower Decks? Okay.
Nice.
Oh, and guess what? Sid for sure has sex now. She's been healed sexually, getting that kanga dick.
Nice.
Get it wrong.
Oh, and speaking of, here's Gail, looking fine as hell and still doing the news. Guess having a best-selling book and a movie deal doesn't make her the second coming of John Grisham just yet. I will be bummer. She's got a new camera guy, since she threw the throat-sliced body of her last one from the roof of her van, but he doesn't really factor into this movie in any significant way other than giving us another minority character to occasionally mention that, hey, they're a minority character in a horror movie, which mostly serves to make us awkwardly consider how his character is handled.
Almost got an award for that.
Because the filmmaking 101 student's face remains sadly unpunched.
But sir, at Harvard, they
At Harvard, they taught you hit the streets, egghead.
Anyway, back to sexy Gail, who was accosted by a reporter fan. As in, they're a fan of Gail, and they're also a local reporter themselves. Oh, to clarify, the reason all these people are showing up to Sydney's college is to ask Sydney how she feels about those two people getting murdered at the showing of the movie about her life. Not sure what's compelling about that, but also we live in a world where we ask Brad Pitt his opinions on Tibet.
This is some heavy shit.
And let Matt Damon hawk crypto. So what do I freaking know?
Fortune favors 20 seconds of insane courage.
Feels like I should mention that Portia de la Rosa is in this movie as a sister of a sorority interested in having Sydney join, even though
that's not gonna happen.
I took several notes on her appearances throughout the movie because I was hoping that her and her sidekick would turn out to be the new killers. That did not happen. I am so pissed. I'm gonna have to rewatch all of Arrested Development's first 3 seasons to calm down, and no, I will not make a video about it. Some things are just for me. Is it okay with you, Dave?
You old horny slut!
Although Dave and I did actually watch all 3 seasons of Arrested Development in high school in one night.
One night, yeah.
We didn't even make content out of it? How stupid were we? It's funny, I never really considered that I was already doing this in high school. I even had the channel in high school. We could have done this in high school.
In the film? Yes, in the film.
Whatever. Dewey, or at least the stumbling near corpse of what's left of Dewey, lumbers up to Sydney to inform her that he's here to protect her from what he believes is a copycat killer. Yeah, only thing you could protect Sydney from, Dewey, is apparently a hairstylist. Because your mustache is looking rough. But no, he's offering more brain-centric services. And he informs Sydney there's a good chance that she already personally knows the killer. Gas! All of a sudden, Gail drags over Cotton for an impromptu interview with Sydney. Cotton forgives Sydney for the whole wrongful accusation thing in the first movie, and Sydney once again, but for sure harder than last time, because this is the sequel. Dewey is also mad at Gail because she basically called him a doofus in her book, which, like, I mean, Dewey. Come on.
My name is Dwight.
Come on, Dewey. You're a doofus. Don't let that get in the way of Gail. I mean, come on, Dewey. Gail? That girl could stiffen that spine up something fierce. Gail! But no, he chooses masturbation instead.
I have some oozing to do.
Sid goes to a sorority party and Portia greets her the way that I greet my standoffish cat.
Hi! No, I really mean that. Hi.
Elsewhere, at a different and empty sorority house, the liberal cunt girl from film theory class gets a creepy phone call.
That is so moral majority.
She's all alone because she's sober, which, like, I could totally relate to. And the caller asks her,
Do you want to die tonight?
and she says, no thank you, and wanders around the house looking for the killer to no avail. She then sets the house alarm and locks the door, even though I'm fairly certain he claimed to be in the house by this point. And look, Daphne.
Shaggy.
I thought you were way better at unmasking serial killers than this.
I can look at myself naked.
But she's not, and Ghostface attacks as clumsily as ever. It's good to see that this copycat is copying everything, down to the inability to successfully stab on the first try. But eventually, as always, he sorts it out and throws Daphne out a window, stabs her in the back, and then hucks that body off a roof. Right,
Shaggy.
Smash cut to some 90s song.
But it's not true.
In a party full of people dressed like my dad did when he was younger.
How do you do, fellow kids?
And the party is interrupted as the police whiz by to Daphne's house and the entire party runs over to see what's going on. Oh, and Gail's there too. Oh, and I've got a great joke for her. Just a sec.
Do not with me.
Oh, sorry. My bad. Sid, for her part, is still at the original party house when the phone rings and she answers it, even though it's not her house. Why would she do that? I don't know. But she's, of course, immediately attacked, and just as, of course, she deftly evades the killer with a sick-ass swim move. Then the clumsy ass falls over a chair, and boyfriend Derek runs in to get that bad boy, but then Dewey lumbers in also, but he's too late because Derek has already gotten slashed in the arm and the killer has escaped. Crazy how much more effective the killer seems to be with big star quarterbacks represented by super agent Jerry Maguire than random small women.
You?
Show me the money! And now we're at the hospital, tending to Derek's surprisingly superficial flesh wound. A friend I forgot to mention before, but is also around, named Mickey, is like, hey, isn't it weird that he ran back in instead of staying to protect you? And Sid is like, you're right. And Dewey is also skeptical, but then Derek is skeptical of him for running over, and the cops are sitting there like, ooh, catfight.
Yeah, it is.
Now, Sid is scared of everybody. She presses pause on her relationship with Derek and instead travels everywhere with two burly detective bodyguard fellows. I wonder if Sid is actually serious, though, about pausing with Derek.
Derek, I'm serious.
Elsewhere, a real detective with a real find behind realizes that the killer is killing people with the same first names as the victims of the first movie, proving that, yeah, it's a copycat killer. Then she further proves her badass bona fides by being misogynistic towards Dewey.
Dewey, smile just once.
Just like a cop. Later at lunch, it's revealed that Mickey has been
thinking about this whole murder thing.
Oh yeah, Mickey? Have you? Well, I'm pretty sure everybody else has already forgotten about the at-large serial killer and 3 dead
dumbass white girls.
I'm saying that sarcastically, but Derek basically ignores him and Sid's wishes and sings shittily on a table about how much he loves her. I love you! And everybody is very into it.
I saw a girl.
Elsewhere, Randy and Dewey puzzle out who the killer might be, and Randy very metally offers up 3 rules for horror sequels. 1, the body count is always bigger. 2, the death scenes are more elaborate. But he stops short of giving us a 3rd rule, but thankfully in the trailer he says 3, never ever under any circumstances assume the killer is dead. So do with that what you will. I'm afraid. They also mention the killer is almost always a white male, which is largely true of real life these days. But not always. Real life is fun like that. Then Randy offers up an amazing name for a band.
The Unrequited Love Slave.
Or a love slave.
Bring out the gimp.
Later, Sid tries to quit the play that she's a part of because, somebody's trying to kill her, and her fancy thespian professor man tells her, actually, no, you should use your pain in your art, Sid, like Barry. So she does a play rehearsal, but it's pretty intense and appears to include both the killer and at least one buble crossum ex machina. Is that how you say it in Latin? It's actually unclear whether she was hallucinating or not, but what is clear is that she wants Derek to leave her alone, gold dang it! Also clear, I would pay good money for this.
My head, Jennifer Aniston's body.
I'm just kidding, I don't have money. I do have a Patreon though. But anyway, the top part of my greatest fantasy, Dewey and Randy, all sort of collectively receive a phone call from the killer and scamper all over the park, tackling people and stealing their phones to try and catch the guy. Unfortunately, it turns out that the killer was apparently just the lamestream media, because he's chilling in the news van and he murders the shit out of Randy. I feel so bad for Randy not getting to live through the current horror renaissance. Has Randy even heard of elevated horror? It's like a horror movie, but the real monster is sadness. It's amazing.
What the hell?
Sid receives DMs that would honestly be pretty tame and common on Twitter before being accosted by a fame-hungry cotton who wants to do a joint Diane Sawyer interview with Sid and gets extremely pissed when she says no because, again, there's a killer trying to murder her.
Everybody's favorite little victim.
Wow. Feels like people would be more sympathetic to that. Even if they're an asshole, surely they could read the room. But apparently not, because the cops arrest him for his aforementioned assholery. The subsequent interrogation reveals that, yeah, Cotton is a bit of a creepy dick, and yeah, Sid's mother has horrible taste in men, but also, he's almost certainly an innocent creepy dick. Much like yours truly. Hey, did I write that?
I think you better treat me with the rights and privileges accorded to every innocent citizen in this country.
Well, anyway, I correctly guessed in my notes right here at 1 hour, 13 minutes, and 15 seconds who the killer is, but if I revealed them right now, that'd ruin the surprise, and I am a professional YouTuber. Call me Mr. Beast, because I'm hinting at a thing that won't pay off unless you watch more of the video and improve my ranking in the algorithm.
Trong video này, chúng ta sẽ chữa chứng khiếm thị cho 1.000 người.
Also, I almost read that as, also I'm autistic. Which is not what I wrote, so calm down.
Từ tới trong video này, chúng tôi muốn quyên góp $100,000.
And also, I'm very altruistic. I like burgers. I can make the beast face. Anyway, all of this murdering is too much for the cameraman, so he leaves.
See ya, wouldn't want to be ya.
Or rather, he gets out. Movie reference that also feels slightly racially charged. That's a metaphor for Scream 2, baby.
That's right.
Well, with him out of the way, Gale and Dewey team up and realize the killer might be visible in the crowd footage that they shot of each crime scene, but unfortunately, as these characters are trapped in the cruel 90s and their van is full of dead Randy juices, the only way to actually watch said footage is to sneak into the campus film school and find a VCR. Also, David Arquette deserves an Oscar for all this limping. More like Dewey Day-Lewis, am I right? My left foot much? Incredible.
I love you, Eileen.
They pop in a tape, and it just so happens to be the two of them arguing, which for me, basically be a sex tape. Oh, look at that. It pretty much is. It's all happening, Dave! Ah, except boner killer. A second video comes on that shows them doing it, which would usually be great, but in this instance means they might get murdered in a second, which it just doesn't do it for me anymore. But the killer does end up attacking, and everybody does what they do best. The female character beats the shit out of the killer with a phone, while Dewey phantom threads his ass down the stairs. The killer chases Gail around for a while she does everything she can to be as silent as possible, but Dewey has no such concern.
Gail!
And is immediately murdered all to shit, which he kind of deserved. The killer, like always, sticks his swingy arm like halfway through the door, but like a particularly formidable chode, he can't get fully in there. So instead, he impotently smacks the window, and eventually he leaves. And so does Gail, although she does bump into a blood-covered cotton, which in my experience never washes out. Believe me, I have tried a lot. Cotton claims he was just trying to help Dewey. She's skeptical, and she calls the cops. Outside, Sid's detectives give up on ever actually catching the killer and instead decide to bugger off to some secret location with Sid and her roommate to hide for a while until this whole extremely targeted serial killer thing just blows over.
You guys at the Bureau thought of everything.
Derek says goodbye, then is immediately crucified by some frat bros. Wrong. Just like Jesus of Nazareth. Water into Miller Lite. So water.
Handcuff the king of the Jews!
While driving, one of the detectives cracks a joke about killing Sid.
We tell you, we'll have to kill you.
Which, hey, not a great time for that one, bub. But it's fine, because he gets killed at a stoplight, which is why you should always keep your car windows rolled up. Otherwise, they become car murder holes. Why is this killer like John Wick against enemies sporting a penis, but John Wick's puppy against the dickless? Is it because killing women gives the killer a boner that takes precious blood away from maybe his muscles?
It's demanding.
I don't know. But he steals the car and drives around with one of the cops draped over the hood before eventually flattening the detective's useless head against a wall. But the killer is knocked out in the accident, and what follows is an excruciatingly long sequence where the girls essentially crawl over the dude's lap to escape the wreckage without waking him up. Now, not to sound barbaric, but this is the time to, wrap the seatbelt around the dude's neck and finish the job. If your worthy's about to wake up, I mean, not even Sid's dump truck Pixar ass right in his face wakes him up. But no, they start running, stop and decide to go back, but oops, he already murdered the roommate, which is not a copycat move at all. Neither is killing the detectives, so this guy's getting sloppy. Dewey sort of counts, because the killers tried to kill him and Gail before. Detectives? No. Roommate? No. Come on, killer. Sid runs to the school theater, which seems like a terrible plan. Aren't there nearby frat houses, or campus police, or anything? Dorms? Really any place where other people are? The exact opposite of what you'd find in the theater building after hours. And what do you know? She hops on stage and gets essentially haunted by the set and trapped on stage. Ah, dang. And now the crucified boyfriend is there, but unconscious. Is this a callback to the tied-up boyfriend in the first movie? More like Jerry-O callback.
I said a hip hop, the hippie.
But if the killer brought him here, how did he remove him from the party? How far did he have to carry him? How jacked is this dude who also gets obliterated by punches from Gail? Well, apparently it's Mickey, which is a major letdown. Unless you think Derek is involved, Mickey shoots him in the heart, like Cupid, but if Cupid had a Glock. Mickey reveals that his whole thing is that he wants to get caught, go to court, and blame everything on watching violent movies. Because again, Wes needs to get out more.
What'd you call me?
Nobody really cares about your movies, dude. Just make whatever. Anyway, as is par for the course, Sid beats the shit out of him for a bit until he thinks about baseballs or his grandma and gets enough blood back into his arms to stop her. And then finally we get a good twist, which is there's a second killer, and it's the news reporter lady from earlier, which is also who I wrote down in my notes. It turns out that she's not just a reporter, she's actually Billy's mom.
What's that, Mother? Well, they have a right to be here.
She's all like mad about Sid murdering her son, I guess. Oh, and she's brought with her Gail, who apparently didn't recognize Billy's mom despite writing a book about their family. Because apparently Billy's mom has lost a lot of weight, which is actually just like Gail. So So how did Mickey get connected with Billy's freaking mom of all people? Well, they met on basically eHarmony for serial killers.
We met on the internet, psycho website, classifieds.
See, Mickey was a real up-and-coming killer, and Billy's mom saw potential, so she paid his tuition. But also, she's gonna pin this whole thing on him. But if that's true, why does she need all this elaborate copycat setup? Instead of having him kill a bunch of random students, why not just have him stab Sydney before she was even aware he was there? And why stalk her? If her true motivation is revenge, wouldn't she want it done quickly and cleanly? Like, why did she kill the people at the movie theater?
What does that have to do with the plot of the story?
But I guess not, because she shoots Mickey, who accidentally shoots Gail. But then Sid makes Billy's mom look and smacks shit into her head. And grabs an axe and starts dropping shit from the set on her. But not just that, Sid also works the thunder sheets or whatever to make this scene scarier, which is a ridiculous side mission. It's no fun just killing the woman trying to murder you. You gotta set the scene, get the ambience right. Sid gets it. Eventually, Billy's mom is buried under what, like 8 pounds of styrofoam rubble? There's no reason to believe those are real cinder blocks. This is a college play, but no, it wipes her out, man. Except, no, it doesn't. She gets back up and they fight. Middle-aged woman versus a bunch of teens? Who will win? The suspense is killing me. But then Cotton shows up with a gun and Billy's mom grabs Sid and everybody has a little standoff and Sid agrees to do the Diane Sawyer thing though, so Cotton shoots Billy's mom for her. But the chances of an untrained guy like Cotton making that shot without just braining Sid are pretty low.
Never tell me the odds.
Pistols are hard to shoot even if you know what you're doing. Ask the 2,000 people accidentally shot and killed in 2021. Oh wait, you can't.
Wow. That was intense.
Anyway, Gail is alive, naturally, and despite the brutal wounds, she remains as snarky as ever.
Just bounced off my ribs.
Because that's called consistent characterization. Then she and Sid shoot Mickey's body approximately 30 times, which is very snarky. Oh, and they double tap the mom for good measure, which is probably a crime, right? Like, that's clearly an execution. Self-defense is one thing. Executing a person lying on the ground with a serious injury is a step beyond.
To infinity and...
But also, Dewey survived to tease a potential lip tour de force in the inevitable Scream 3. Look out, Academy Awards! Dewey's gonna slip and fall all over that stage.
I love you, Eileen.
Outside, news people try to interview Sid, but she directs them to Cotton since he's so media obsessed. And then, in the middle of the credits, we get a short clip of Killer Face. Again. Scream!
Alright, cut, let's take a break.
Great idea, my unmurdered friend and co-worker who I definitely won't murder. This video's gonna blow up. Hey, what are you doing in there, dude?
Hold on, dude, I'm gramming real quick.
Oh, can I come in, dude?
No, hold on a second.
Let me get in there, dude.
Be cool, dude.
Dude, let's TikTok.
Doing with that knife.
Dude, we can collaborate.
Now is it a good time?
You know I don't like your stab games.
Immediately, Scream 3 ups the meta-ness of this metaverse of meta movies with a Hollywood sign subtly hinting we're about to go
backstage, baby girl.
But first, we're stuck in traffic with Cotton, who's now the host of a talk show called
100% Cotton,
suggesting that his content is soft, breathable, comfortable, gentle on the skin, and non-clingy.
Oh, well, thank you.
His agent, or whatever, calls him to discuss a cameo in the upcoming Stab sequel because that series is still ongoing despite all of the murders it keeps inspiring.
You know, I live for the thing.
Proving once and for all, cancel culture is not real. But then Cotton gets a call from some sexy voice that claims she's a huge fan and he's really into it. Until it turns into a boy voice.
I'm right outside.
That instantly kills his boner. Not because it's a boy voice, but because it immediately brings up his long-term partner.
Let's come in for a closer look.
Even worse, the voice threatens to murder her while she's showered. The only way to save his girlfriend is to tell the voice where Sydney is, but Cotton either doesn't know or refuses to say, so the voice hangs up and Cotton slams into a car. We are then treated to intercut scenes of a sexy wet woman sauntering around her apartment and less sexy wet Cotton driving like a lunatic through traffic while aggressively not calling the cops. We also see a poster for Stab 2 with the tagline, "Even true stories have sequels," which is kind of clever, but I feel like they should focus more on it being a horror movie than it being true. But I guess the title Stab kind of sells that part. No. Anyway, we learn that the killer is sadistic as shit because he literally turns on What If by Creed to ensure that Cotton's girlfriend's final moments are truly agonizing. The girlfriend still doesn't realize that she's being stalked though, because as she says,
You know I don't like your stab games.
alright, well that's incredibly f***ed up. Cotton has been falsely accused of murder and himself shot by a murderer in a crazy bloodbath, and yet he still has enough distance from all of it to play
Stab games.
with his girlfriend? Even if he isn't literally a murderer, he's clearly some sort of sociopath, or again, Californian.
We's a little juice.
But no, the real killer
using some sort of device to mimic Cotton's voice.
attacks Cotton's girlfriend, and as you might guess, gets kicked right in the head. She manages to barricade herself in a room, but when Cotton shows up, she thinks he's trying to kill her, and she smacks him in the face. But unfortunately, he isn't. And the real killer stabs her
and ultimately kills Cotton. Scream 3!
And okay, here's Sydney walking a dog, which we must apparently beware of, except it's a damn golden retriever. Is she worried that she'll be attacked by a juicy steak or a tennis ball? Apparently, because she also has a security keypad attached to the world's most easily bypassed gate. And how does Sid pay for all these elaborate and ultimately entirely useless security measures? By being a remote crisis counselor. Lucrative! Her weirdly wide-eyed dad visits her to just say hey and also deliver a mildly emotional moment brought to us by Chips Ahoy. You cannot take a stab at diagnosing your daughter's depression without hitting a chocolate chip. Bet you bite a deep-rooted fear. There's a lot of sadness in Chips Ahoy. Chips Ahoy is here. Here for women in hiding. Later that night, she has a double dream about her mom wandering around in the woods, who then becomes the killer, but again is ultimately none of those things because that is how dreams work. And now here's Gail explaining to a bunch of kids that good journalists go hard in the paint before a dreamy cop reveals to her that
someone killed Cotton.
And also he needs her help finding the killer, and also who murdered her hair? I mean, good God, Gail. Oh my God, you need to sue somebody.
Choking back some making vomit.
Cut from there to the Sunrise Studios movie lot where production has begun on Stab 3, and a weird old man is biking. Also, I just feel like that's important. They want to shut the movie down though because of the murder, but like they already made a whole ass sequel to the first movie after the deaths of a half a dozen people connected to that story. Just don't kill the movie. So why the change of heart? How do they even really know that Cotton's murder is connected to Stab in the first place?
He was making a movie called Stab. He was stabbed.
Here's another argument about
violence in cinema.
While Wes Craven sobs quietly behind the camera.
Never had a psycho problem.
The people most likely to be affected by a shutdown are all these actors that are playing stand-ins of our main cast. Real Gale runs into fake Gale and also real Dewey and also fake Dewey, and it turns out that everybody hates real Gale because she's basically a full-on TMZ reporter now.
Lost and Lonely what?
Reporting on everybody's celebrity misdeeds, whether they actually did anything wrong or not. I guess she didn't actually learn her lesson from the last movie.
Lost and Lonely what?
Gotta reset everybody emotionally, I guess. Speaking of, real Dewey is dating fake Gale because he and real Gale broke up, but man, the sexual tension here is like a pot of Pike Place.
It's brewing.
Maybe they'll fall in love a third time though. Gale is thrown off set.
Thanks for your help, boys.
And here's Jay and Silent Bob for literally no reason.
Connie Chung!
Later, well-endowed, renowned science expert Jenny McCarthy
fish sticks
gets murdered by Ghostface after he presumably uses his voice-modulating technology to pretend to be Stab 3's director, Roman, and sets up a meeting. Interestingly, she is the first female character to be murdered without landing any real hits of her own. I mean, I guess she does hit him with like a floppy fake sword and that would have worked, but it doesn't, so she dies. Also, the killer's outfit is much sparklier than I realized. The cops actually end up arresting Roman because a lot of people heard his voice and believe that he did set up the meeting.
You called Sarah, told her to come down to the studio.
Does voice mimicking tech like this exist in real life, or is the killer like Tom Hiddleston?
Oh, no. I'm from now. I go back in time.
I don't know!
But Roman gets released not long after because the call didn't come from his phone, so it's all good. Elsewhere, Dewey and Gale share a little heart-to-heart, and Dewey claims that the reason he was on set is because he's an advisor and also that somebody tried to steal Sid's personal information. That's kind of the whole point of this scene. So from there, they travel to fake Gale's house, and has Parker Posey ever just played a normal person who didn't dress like an escaped toddler? I don't don't know, but they all decide that the killer is killing people Final Destination style by offing them in the order of how they died in the movie script for Stab 3. Unfortunately, there are 3 versions of the script because they were worried about leakage, which is what literally happened to Scream 2. Everybody from that movie was murdered!
Someone's gonna pay for this!
Jennifer, settle down.
No, okay, it was just that the script of Scream 2 leaked. That makes more sense. Anyway, they're all sort of talking about stuff, and Fake Gale's bodyguard, Kronk, is not very nice to Dewey.
So how about you take suggestions from me?
And they realize that the killer has been leaving photos of Sid's mom at crime scenes, which is weird.
10 more murders and we can publish a calendar.
They also realize nobody can account for where Sid's mom was for like 2 years when she was young, and they determine from the photos that she actually was on Sunrise Studios' set. That's pretty wild. Even wilder,
it's all coming together.
The bodyguard dicks around Dewey's trailer and gets himself dicked with the long dick of the killer's dick shaped like knife. Angry! But surely...
Don't call me Shirley.
Kronk wasn't killed in the script. Like we just said, that's what the killer was doing. And then the very next kill has nothing to do with the script.
Disappointed!
Anyway, wounded Kronk makes his way back to Fake Gale's house and freaks out the remaining guests, which, oh, by the way, includes Fake Dewey.
You're drunk.
I'm coping.
Apparently, the killer heard my complaints, though, so he starts faxing over a new script.
Oh, what's it say?
Which does include the killing of the bodyguard, which, like, okay, I guess that's a way to change the rules and also abide by the rules. This guy's good. So good that he literally blows up Fake Dewey and the entire house. Throwing everybody else down a hill into the woods. Dewey stands up and hears both real and fake Gale yelling, and of course runs towards real Gale. Oft imitated, never duplicated. The McRib of movie love interests.
Looks like Daddy's bringing home the barbecue.
Good thing he does too, because he manages to shoot the killer as he's attacking Gale. He, of course, then falls down the hill. He sells it so well that I bet there will be blood. I've abandoned my boy! But Gale finds Dewey's clumsiness adorable, I guess, because here they are about to fall in love for literally a 3rd time when BAM! Dewey is punched by Fake Gale and BAM! Fake Gale is punched by real Gale. Things are getting hot. Oh, and also the body of the killer is nowhere to be found, but the killer did thoughtfully, again, leave another of Sid's mom's pictures, because I guess the characters are solving things way too slowly for him.
Gave you all the clues.
Anyway, now Dreamy Cop wants to talk to Sid and tries to convince Dewey to tell him where she is, but look at that. She just shows up of her own accord. Staples.
That was easy.
So now, this motley crew heads down to the part of Sunrise Studios featured in Sid's mom's photos to try and learn things.
Dewey!
What things? I don't know.
Watch the alien.
Actually, apparently what they're going to learn is a bunch of meta exposition about the way horror trilogies work from not Randy, but a VHS recording of Randy, played by Randy's sister, who was never mentioned or seen before this moment.
Sorry.
Looks like somebody very much regrets killing Randy in the last movie. Wes. A person who doesn't regret Randy's death? Randy.
I'm leaving my legacy.
He claims he made this video literally in the event of his death, with the assumption that he wasn't going to survive the last movie, which, like, couldn't he have written it down? Couldn't he have just told them what he's about to say before being murdered? Like, why do they need to only receive this information at some specific opportune time post-death when something terrible is happening and it counts as the 3rd time?
Trilogy. That's right.
I don't know, but also who cares? The point is, Randy's got more rules, specifically about the final movie in a horror
trilogy. That's right.
Which he claims is all about returning to the beginning to change something we thought was true. But that's not technically a rule, I guess.
Here are some super trilogy rules.
Because the actual rules are 1. Killer is now superhuman. Gotta blow him up or do something very dramatic. 2. Anybody, including the main character, can die. 3. Past will come back in a big way. Not super helpful. What do you do with that? But thanks, Randy. Oh, and bye, Randy, sister.
Bye.
See you later in Princess Diaries.
Oi.
Fake Gale shows up. and is like, hey, Real Gale, I'm gonna follow you around because I'm worried that the killer wants to kill me, but if he sees you, then he'll probably kill you instead.
Makes sense? None.
Real Gale is like, fine, I don't care, and they break into the studio archives building together. They're briefly held up by Senator Organa.
No.
And she helps them learn that Sid's mom had a
stage name.
Made a bunch of horror movies with the same producer that's been producing Stab 3. Not gonna lie, completely forgot about that dude until this exact moment, but still. Hey, here's Dewey looking absolutely like a serial killer. Sid goes to drop a fat deuce, but notices somebody's pulling their shoes up in another stall, so she only to find fake Sid holding a bunch of ghost-faced memorabilia, but it's cool. They're just souvenirs from set. It's never explained why she was scrambling on top of the toilet, but I guess that's a thing that happens in women's bathrooms. Ladies love to watch the poop plop from a great height just as much as the next person, okay? Misogynists? Women can be just as sickening and gross as men, Dave. They can poop from great heights, Dave. I don't know why you're always saying they can't.
I got a crap on deck that could choke a donkey.
Fake Sid leaves, so real Sid inexplicably wanders through the movie set version of her home from the first movie all by herself, as if that wouldn't be the perfect place to get murdered, but then again, maybe she should get murdered. She gets real nostalgic for that time that she was dating a serial killer who was real pushy about sex with, I know! She's attacked by a new serial killer with sexual proclivities we know nothing about.
Would you settle for a PG-13 relationship?
As you might expect, these two are about even on a physical level. Just to almost fall out a freaking door. But yeah, she still hucks him 2 stories onto a bed. Ghostface needs to start bringing a gun to these things, or like, just do some push-ups or something. But things get worse for Sid when somebody starts calling her name and the corpse of her mom rises up.
Give mommy a kiss.
It's unclear if this is a hallucination or not, but I think it is. I don't think we ever find out for sure, though.
I am not dreaming. I am not crazy.
The cops and Dewey finally show up, but get this, the killer has escaped. What? They finally go to confront the producer man named Mixon.
You're obsessed with her, and you're obsessed with
John C. And he's like, oh, okay, yeah, I remember Sid's mom because I set up a party where she was maybe gangbanged, but like, that's Hollywood, baby. She knew what she was getting into. And they're like, damn. Well, there's nothing illegal in that.
He's a pervert, he's not a killer.
Except, I think that is illegal. Feels like they should be more upset about this and do more about this guy, but I guess that's not as exciting as dealing with movie violence. So let's head to Milton's house for a birthday party for the director boy, Roman. Everybody sort of shows up, except Sid, and also Milton isn't there yet, so the drunken director wanders around the house with fake Gale. Dewey also calls back the number Sid used to tell him to come to this weird lonely party in the first place, and the phone actually rings from the nearby closet where they find the voice modulator and the mask.
Ooh, spooky.
So I guess the killer is here, but also, surely there's a better place to stash your murder than an unlocked closet right next to where everybody is gonna hang out? And why leave the voice modulator in there? Will they not need it later? Does the killer have like tiny pockets? Is that why they're so mad? But uh-oh, director boy is dead in a prop casket. While fake Gale hides literally 3 feet away and asks,
Is he dead?
we're gonna need to revisit this scene in a bit because it makes no, I mean, it doesn't make any sense now, but it doesn't make sense later either. But for now, real Gale and real Dewey take fake Gale out of there and they run into fake Sid, who reveals that she also had sex with Milton for the privilege of playing Sid in Stab 3, and I guess she isn't the killer because then the killer really beats the out of Dewey and stabs fake Randy, who I forgot to mention as a character because he really has no impact on this movie, and they also did a racial switch for the character, which I don't feel equipped to discuss intelligently. Just know that he exists and he is stabbed. Much like Julius Caesar, I guess, but less like Julius Caesar, he gets epically carpet pulled. Which reminds me of Final Destination's greatest moment. Do you understand anything I ever say?
I have no idea what's going on right now.
You can talk about, yeah, how's your life?
Well, let's roll.
The killer finds fake Gale hiding in a secret passage and starts murdering her on the other side of a silent copy mirror.
Look, Gale, the mirror's moving.
She makes just enough noise for Dewey to shoot every single mirror pane individually to ultimately not even help fake Gale in any way. then, oh, shit, real Gail is grabbed. And she throws herself and the killer down the stairs. And the killer is again knocked unconscious. So Gail picks up his knife and, I'm just kidding, she just calls Dewey for help. These women keep beating the shit out of the killer and then refusing to finish the job. I get that it's probably scary, but so is being stabbed to death. But again, no, she only calls Dewey, and there's some confusion as he's worried that it might be the voice modulated villain again, even though didn't they take the voice modulator, but it's not. So he opens the door to the basement and the killer wakes up and expertly throws a knife at Dewey. At least it's expertly thrown if he's trying to hit him with the hilt instead of, the blade part. But either way, it causes him to fall down for the 85th time in the series. And see stars and bars. The Daniel Day-Lewis movie.
Hello.
Cut to Sid getting a phone call from the killer who says that he's captured Gail and Dewey. He tells her to come to him, but is never very specific about where he is.
Where?
But apparently Sid just knows where Milton lives, I guess. I don't think she was actually invited to the sad party, but whatever. She grabs the dreamy cop's secret desk gun and heads on over. Once she arrives at the house, she receives a phone call and is told to use a metal detector on herself. And it reveals her secret lead gun, which she discovers a tied-up Dewey and Gail and immediately runs up to them and tries to untie them, despite it being the clearest and most obvious trap in cinema history. He's right there! And what do you know? Except, oops, she had a second gun strapped to her leg under the other gun.
It's your turn to scream, asshole.
So she shoots the killer like 5 times, but he's clearly wearing a Kevlar vest. He runs away, and almost as quickly, Dream Cop arrives. And everybody's like, are you the killer? And he's like, what? Lots of tussling ensues, and I feel like the serial killer should have come up with a plan that didn't involve murdering 15 people in the same location. I mean, he's doing fine, but it's still not a great plan. It's the same reason Jeffrey Dahmer picked people off one by one rather than just eating everybody in the vegetable section at Wegmans. He scampers off, and Sid chases him into a secret, sexy screening room where a video plays of her mom.
So pretty.
Also, dead Blake and mom is there.
Would you like to hold me?
But this time it's actually the killer. But it couldn't have been the killer last time, right? The dude had just fallen 2 stories out a window. But then how did the killer know that that was her hallucination? And then why? And then he reenacted it later. What?
Gave you all the clues.
But yes, he is wearing Kevlar. He's also apparently been searching for Sid for years, which should be pretty easy, right? Sure, she went into hiding after the second movie, but before that, she made a lot of headlines after the events of the first Scream. The events they adapted into a major motion picture that also inspired murderers that caused the national media to hound her at college. It couldn't have been that hard to find her, bro. Hell, the first Scream takes place in 1996. That's the same year that Google came out. You literally could have Googled her, brosif. And speaking of bros, it turns out the killer was Roman, and that he is in fact Sid's
fat bastard
half-brother as a result of their mom's sexy escapades. It also means, I guess, that he faked himself dying in that prop casket somehow, but he did it so convincingly that fake Gail thought it was real, even though she was standing right there. How did he do that? How stupid is fake Gail?
I think you'll really appreciate my character work in this one.
The movie weirdly implies that because the mom was essentially raped, that made her unfaithful. I guess that sort of makes it like, oh, her being a dirty slut is because when she was younger, she was a dirty slut, but it went further than she expected. I don't know if that's the best conclusion that we could come to, but okay.
That's a metaphor!
Even worse, Roman has a tape of his own mom having sex with Billy's dad, and he's the one that gave Billy the tape, and I guess it turned him into a murderer. And I'm willing to admit that seeing a sex tape of your dad could lead a normal person to murder, so
I think it's time you got over that.
Roman also has Milton tied up and intends to frame Sid for killing everybody, but I don't know if that really makes much sense. Not everybody commits murder in the name of their mom's honor, but Roman does. Then the 2 siblings go at it like they're on an extended Midwestern road trip.
I've heard this before.
Stop! Don't want to hear it!
Because you choose to. There is no one else to blame.
Damn it!
In the main room, bleeding out Dreamy gives Gail and Dewey his gun. Dewey then heroically yells at Roman like, hey there, buddy, you better stop. Leave it alone! As if that would be the one thing that had deterred this guy who has orchestrated a series of crazy murders with no real sense of self-preservation. Dewey also somehow which is interesting, but still not really helpful. And then Dreamy picks the lock to the room where the siblings are spatting. He then sneaks the gun through the door approximately 20 minutes before the rest of his body. That's not an at the ready position, Dream Boy. Roman shoots Sid twice, except what do you know? She disappeared. Roman calls Sid, but oh my goodness, she was just calling him. Turns out she was also wearing Kevlar. But who isn't wearing Kevlar these days? You're not wearing Kevlar, right? Dave? Hernan says, of course not, you're naked. Finally, everybody else and Sid and her bro share a moment as he dies.
Caleb is dead.
Except then he pops back up because apparently slowly stabbing him directly in the heart is not quite as lethal as my doctor has led me to believe. But thankfully, Dewey shoots him 7,000 times. Including finally one in the head, which is exactly as lethal as my doctor has led me to believe. We're back at the happy farm or whatever, and Gail claims that she's done with sensationalist reporting. Dewey's like, cool, you wanna get married? He's like, yeah, sounds good. And apparently Hot Boy Cop is there too, and he's like, come on, Sid, let's watch a movie. And she's like, wait, I'm gonna leave the door open because I'm not scared of anything anymore, even though like people have tried to kill her 3 times now, all for entirely different and unrelated reasons. There's nothing to suggest a 4th killer won't pop up at some point because Sid cuts him off in traffic or whatever. But to be fair, she did fight off all of her attackers and lived, so maybe she's indestructible.
I am immortal!
I don't know, credits. Okay, fine. So I read about it, and it sounds like the Columbine shooting directly affected the production of Scream 3, and at one point the studio demanded there be no gore or blood in the movie, forcing Wes Craven to step in and yell at them. So I guess it was more personal than I thought, but I still don't really see why it has to be that big of a deal. You know, it's really tough trying to get a decent budget for a stupid YouTube video about violent movies. I'd like to see a Scream about that.
Sorry, please understand.
Understand what? I have a girlfriend who would rather accuse me of being a psychopathic killer than touch me.
You know that's not true.
Then what is it?
What is it? Billy, I was attacked and nearly filleted last night.
Between us, you haven't been the same since.
Is your brain leaking? My mom was killed. I can't believe you're bringing this up.
It's been a year.
Tomorrow. 1 year tomorrow.
Well, I think it's time to get over that. I mean, when my mom left my dad, I accepted it. It's the way it is. She's not coming back.
Your parents split up. This is not the same thing. Your mom left town. She's not lying in a coffin somewhere.
Okay, I'm sorry. It's a bad analogy. It's just that I want my girlfriend back. Sid.
I am sorry if my traumatized life is an inconvenience to you and your perfect existence.
Your lemon squares taste like ass.
They don't.
The 4th Scream won't even let us get past the freaking production title sequences before hitting us with a ringing phone. No dicking around this time, baby. And speaking of no dicks, we see some new ladies. But the voice on the phone is basically the same as always.
What I do have are a very particular...
The one girl hangs up and suggests her and her friend watch Saw 4, but she's like, I saw that in theaters. I hate torture porn. And I'm like, well, the 4th is probably the worst one anyway. You should try the 8th one. That's fun. Or like, the 5th is good. I really like the 1st. The 9th tries something different. I've seen them all. But she doesn't want to listen to me because she has a hot Facebook stalker with apparently the exact literal body of Channing Tatum.
It's Hefe, man.
Suddenly there's another phone call, and this time the killer voice is much meaner.
Hello?
I will.
And then a third phone call, they don't answer, but the weird Facebook stalker is like, actually, please answer the phone, so they do. And what do you know, the doorbell rings. The one girl's like, then open it, but the other is like, nah, let's open it. And she does, and they're both brutally murdered with 10 times the gore of the last few movies. But twist? That was just the ending of Stab 6. Now we cut to a star-studded couch with Anna Paquin and Kristen Bell being like, that movie was lame, and who even uses Facebook these days? It'd make more sense for the killer to use Twitter, but actually, no. Facebook is still the home for the world's worst people. Hey. Speaking of, Kristen Bell probably has an account because she randomly murders Paquin. Which double twist, this scene is actually from Stab 7, which 2 other girls are watching. And I'm watching them, and you're watching me, and your creepy landlord is watching you through the secret light fixture camera. It's a human 6-layer turducken of creepy voyeurism. Is that meta enough for you? Is this clever?
Yes.
Apparently, Sid sued for her life rights after the release of Stab 3, so 4 through 7 have been an entirely separate original story that mostly relies on meta self-awareness, which, ain't that just modern entertainment?
I know, right?
But then suddenly, the bigger boobed one hears something upstairs while the smaller boobed one gets a creepy phone call, but twist, there's an app for mimicking Ghostface's voice, copyright Disney, and Big Boobs was just trying to freak out small boobs. But then of course the phone rings for real, and a real Ghostface mocks Big Boobs for having big boobs, and she's like, excuse me?
I have a 4.0 GPA and 135 IQ, ass.
The ability to speak does not make you intelligent.
A, that doesn't refute or prove anything, and B, how does she know her IQ? It's so fascinating to me that some people know their IQ. Like obviously there are tests or whatever, but it's such a weird, kind of pointless thing to know, like the circumference of your head or your blood type. A, apparently she's as smart as her friend is dead. Ghostface then goes after the main meaty entree, but first has to kind of slowly and awkwardly hoof it up the stairs. And then of course, he stabs her and throws her downstairs, closes the garage door on her, and then stabs her again right into the Scream 4 title card. So apparently these murders are canonical. Did you get all that? Did you get all that? I know you're so good at tracking along with these.
Yeah, dude. Everybody got that?
And now we're in a Woodsboro park where there are little Ghostface dolls on every single lamppost. It's the 15-year anniversary of the original murders, and the people here celebrate that. And they're lucky because Sid is back in town promoting her new book about being a survivor. She's accompanied by Annie from Community, who is much too well endowed to survive this movie. I'm sorry, Annie. Cut from there to Dewey rolling out of bed, leaving Gail snuggled amidst the covers. 10 years of banging Gail has apparently completely eliminated Dewey's limps and myriad ailments, and he's even become the sheriff. I mean, he's about as competent a sheriff as you'd expect, impotently yelling at a speeding car as it whizzes by his personal home. But that car is being driven by the cheerleader who could save the world if she herself was saved.
That was attempt number 6.
I think she's supposed to be in high school, but she's dressed like her Halloween costume for this year is gonna be Slutty CEO. Karen hair, open blazer. Her name is literally Kirby. Who is this weirdo? I don't know, but she picks up Emma Roberts, who is here named Jill Roberts because acting, and also some other even sexier high schooler named Olivia. Don't worry, I could say that. I pre-registered on a special government website before starting this, using Dave's name, of course. I've mentioned this before, but did people in high school really carpool together like this? Like, did people have more than one friend in high school? Just kidding, Dave. You were my second friend in high school. I had 2 friends in high school. I had 2 friends and they were good friends. And you're still here, so. Anyway, Jill is apparently Sid's cousin, and as one might expect, she receives a creepy phone call, but she hangs up.
I'm hanging up.
That's pretty much the scene. Oh, apparently she's broken up with an ex-boyfriend named Trevor because he cheated on her, but he remains as thirsty as ever. Back to Dewey for a sec. He's trying to remove all the ghost faces because, well, it's a bit insensitive to people like, I don't know, Dewey, who had their sisters brutally butchered. Assisting him in this work is an extremely horny deputy who wants Dewey to eat her lemon squares. And I don't know what that means, but man, I want to do it to somebody.
You're not cheating on your wife if you eat my lemon square.
But it's pretty quickly clear that Dewey and Gail are having some marital issues, partially because she gave up being an investigative reporter and she sucks at writing any real fiction. Also, I bet her lemon squares are like all dried out and shitty at this point.
It's bad, Sheriff. Real bad.
Sid walks past a copy of Aragon to read her stupid shitty book with 0 dragons in it. Did you ever read Aragon, Dave? It's okay. It's dragons. It was written by like a 8-year-old or some shit. But then, oh my God, the police show up because they've traced the call that was sent to those unequally endowed but equally murdered girls from the intro to this location. And where is the phone? Well, it's in the back of Sid's rental car along with a bunch of bloody copies of her book. The murder then goes public, and even though all the students simultaneously learn what happened while in class, the teacher's like, everybody calm the shit down. This doesn't mean that we're finished learning about English for the day, just because one of your friends was butchered. Two of your friends, well, I don't know, you're not necessarily friends with both, but you're probably friends with one of them, and they're dead.
Class is not over.
Gail wants to help Dewey, but he's like, no thanks. And she's like, fine, I'm gonna go rogue. As if that was a real thing that real people would say in this situation if it were real. She also offers up a bit more insight into this lemon square mystery by exclaiming that
your lemon squares taste like ass.
Does this mean they're a part of the ass? Except then Dewey says they don't taste like ass, so maybe it's just the taint? Our investigation continues, Dave. You and I are gonna get to the bottom of this.
The big magnifying.
Later that night, Sid's aunt complains that nobody asks her about her emotional scars stemming from all the murders that happen around her. And it's like, read the room, Kate. Upstairs, Jill finishes off a massive shit, and then her ex-boyfriend breaks into her room. And then Sid technically knocks on the door, but then just breaks in anyway, and is all surprised that the boyfriend is there, and then she leaves without actually saying anything. So what was she going to say? Because she just smelled Jill's massive shit and wanted to remind her to light a match? We may never know. In the hallway, the horny deputy lurks in the shadows and mentions that she went to high school with Sid, and Sid is like, okay. And I looked it up, by the way, she was not in the first Scream, but she did audition for the Tatum role. But she probably didn't have those overwhelming sweater-destroying nipples, so I guess lemon squares aren't nipples. Outside the house, we see yet another Kangaroo Jack veteran alongside a rookie cop. And it turns out that this one is a full-on pedophile.
She can live next door to me.
See, this child-loving cop was referring to Olivia, who was returned home from wherever she was, and she immediately takes all her clothes off without turning off the lights or closing the blinds. My kind of woman. In a few years, when I'm certain that she's of a legal age. And again, the government is aware of me and Dave. Right next door, Kirby and Jill watch Shaun of the Dead, which is fun, but then they're forced to watch Olivia get murdered, which is less fun. Sid, ever the superhero, runs over there to kick Ghostface's ass, and again, this movie is so much gorier. I suppose Wes is trying to make a point, but I will say that the extra gore does actually make it kind of scary. Whatever that's worth, Wes, I know you're dead. The killer calls Sid and is like, I just want to clarify that this time it's personal and I'm gonna make you suffer by hurting your family and people you care about and make you sad. And then the killer immediately attacks and tries to kill her because I guess they were kidding. They actually just want to murder Sid, except per usual, Ghostface gets the shit beaten out of him and has to run away. Oh, and at some point, Jill shows up and she also gets slashed. There's a brief shot of somebody picking shit up in the street, and I assume it's somebody's like viscera or discarded body parts, but we never get a close-up, so it could also just be a cat that the ambulance ran over, or like leftover Halloween decorations, or it could just be their McDonald's order. I don't know, I haven't eaten or slept in like 5 days. Did I mention I have a Patreon and a child respectively in that specific order? I don't want to mess that up. The two cops apologize to Dewey and are like, my bad about letting everybody get stabbed, and Dewey's too kind to be upset about them letting a girl get butchered. Right. Get you a boss who can't even stay mad at you for letting a teen get fucking disemboweled while another one's slashed in the arm and a local celebrity gets bashed and stabbed. I mean, literally your whole job is to protect them, but I mean, you're good kids. You know, they're good kids. They're good boys. Not their fault. Speaking of kids, two kids with whatever 2011 thought of as a functional mobile live streaming rig show up and start asking questions. They have names, I'm sure, but more importantly, one of them is a lesser Culkin.
Hello.
Then Gail shows up and learns these two are part of the school's cinema club, and they decide to work together because, you know, Gail's gone rogue.
2 generations of cutting-edge journalists intertwining our passions for fucking the killer.
Sid's at the hospital, but the doctor waits until she's literally halfway out the door to give her her diagnosis.
There's no broken bones.
What were they talking about before that moment? The stab movies? How many pool balls a person can fit in their mouth? Then Annie shows up and is like, hey, the publisher or whatever wants you to write 3 new books. And Sid is like, I am not interested and you are fired.
Fired.
And Annie is like, fine, I don't even care. And she heads upstairs to the dark parking garage with her sweater puppies hanging all out. And I mean, the killer can't avoid that, so he calls her. And even worse, her car doesn't even start for literally no reason. And the killer jumps on the hood. And then he just disappears. She gets out of the car like an idiot and is stabbed like an idiot. And then hucked off the roof from such a great height that even her pillowy bosoms are unable to cushion the fall. Cut to Sid making a celebrity appearance at high school cinema club. One of the kids mentions that the killer should just film all his kills and then post them to like Facebook, which is an astute observation. That's the f***ed up future we actually live in. Hooray! You got it right!
Yes, I got nothing wrong with the test.
They also mention the only way to survive a modern horror is by being gay, which... They also mention every straight character in horror reboots gets killed at a big party. Speaking of, that night they're gonna throw a big secret stab-a-thon party at the world's most expensive renovated barn. Did we have cool secret fancy barn parties when we were in high school? Like, I feel like, did I miss it? Did you go to secret party barn parties? I didn't do anything in high school. Everybody in these movies had big party barns. I'm like, how many kids are even at this party? Can it really be a secret party if every child within 100 miles knows about it? How small is this town exactly? Where are their parents? Also, stab-a-thon? How meta that I'm doing a scream-a-thon and talking about a stab-a-thon. How deep does this turducken go?
How meta can you get?
Also, are these two characters undercover 70s porn stars or just Dewey stans? Are those the same thing? And speaking of people who've probably made porn with and on Dewey and or his mustache, Gail sneaks into the party and starts setting up a bunch of cameras so she can record the horny teens. And hey, Gail, I can refer you to a very useful government list. I don't really even, like, I get sort of the joke, but is there a website where you would pre-register as a sex offender and it'd be fine? It's cool because I'm telling you that I'm that way. Except twist. Somebody is blocking those cameras. Who could it be? Gail calls Dewey to tell him about it, but they sort of have a fight.
Well, I thought you were going rogue, Gail.
And she gets all pissy and essentially just says, fine, I'll just get murdered then.
Forget it.
Because everybody who interacts with Dewey is for some reason compelled to really downplay the insane danger of the situation.
I don't know, I heard him say it.
Dewey still shows up anyway, right as Gail gets attacked by the killer after she notices that he's been setting up webcams everywhere, just like the cinema club Dewey predicted, which is probably a coincidence.
Wow, how convenient is f***ing that?
Gail mostly beats the shit out of the killer, per usual, but then she gets stabbed and Dewey shoots a bit so the killer runs away. Elsewhere, the two cousins do some heart-to-heart character development bullshit that nobody cares about.
I mean, I know we're family, but me.
Jill even calls her room a cell twice in 30 seconds. So you know that she is not happy staying in her cell of a room.
I feel like I'm under house arrest.
Oh, and outside, the shitty cops get stabbed right in their shitty heads through the car's murder hole. Guys, we talked about this. Windows up. What the They also yell,
Bruce Willis.
which is very problematic. Then Sid gets called by the killer and the aunt shows up and they run up to Jill's room to find nothing but a U2 poster. What the heck was it from movies made during this time frame that made screenwriters say, you know what band T-girls love? U2. The sweetest thing. Where the streets have no name. With or without you, the girls that can't live without you too. God, every girl in 2011 was like, damn, I love you too. They put that shit right in my iPod, I can't get away from it. Jill has clearly run away to join the girl from Taken in following
U2's European tour dates.
Either that or she snuck out to the Stab-a-thon party. Either or. The killer immediately attacks via the front door and manages to stab the aunt through the mail slot, which is probably a metaphor for the defunding of the USPS. Also, hey, the aunt finally got her scars. Also, hey, my dad makes stamps. Isn't that weird? Then the horny deputy shows up and Sid pretty much immediately leaves. I actually don't know if she knows where she's going or how to get there, but I'm sure that she'll figure this out because it's a movie. See, the majority of the teen characters are hanging out now at Kirby's house. Because as Culkin exclaims, he wants to finish the Stabathon, and he throws on Stab 7.
Nobody cancels my festival.
Even though they barely got like 5 minutes through Stab 1 before the killer came in and broke up the party. Was he watching the rest of the movie on his phone or something in the car? How is he already at 7? I don't know, but then he and Kirby have a horror dick measuring contest. Is there a movie about a horror dick I should reference right now, Dave? Give me a you love horror dick movies. Movies about scary dicks.
Scary dick movie?
Yeah. You're always sending me scary dick clips.
That's Casper.
Casper the scary dick. Anyway, that's not gonna end up in the video.
It actually did.
Trevor shows up and claims Jill texted him, but she's like, no, I didn't, God, and runs upstairs to get her phone to prove it. Then the non-Culkin, who'd stepped outside, begins live streaming the actual Culkin about to hook up with Kirby, which is definitely going to be his most popular content to date and probably land him in jail.
There is a good chance.
Kirby clearly does want to hook up with this weirdo, but Lord knows why. Does he have strong, slutty business connections or something? I don't know. But it doesn't matter anyway, because the first nerd stalker porn stream is cut short when he's stabbed to death despite him maybe being gay.
Oh, I'm gay. I'm gay.
Is that meta or twist or lie or nothing? The killer disappears. Nobody can find Trevor, and oh, look at that. Sid shows up at the front door. How did she know where to go? And oops, here's the killer again. But they get kicked fully down an entire flight of stairs. Their balls are completely flat. Somebody should just really finish them off. I don't think it'd be that hard. Just... But no, Jill hides under a bed while Sid lures the killer onto the roof, but gets clotheslined by said killer, so she falls off the roof, and Sid and Kirby end up locked in the basement. The Culkin nerd tries to get in there. They don't let him in because he has bloody hands, so he gets killed too. Or actually, I guess he gets tied to a chair at the beginning of the first movie. The killer calls Kirby and asks her lots of horror questions, and then she says what I say when anybody asks me what series I'm considering for future videos.
Halloween, Texas Chainsaw, Dawn of the Dead, The Hills Have Eyes, Amityville Horror, Last House on the Left, Friday the 13th, A Nightmare on Elm Street, My Bloody Valentine, When a Stranger Calls, Prom Night, Black Christmas, House of Wax, The Fog, Piranha.
Kirby thinks she's won, so she goes to untie Culkin nerd, but twist, he stabs her, and not in the sexy way. Unless you like to die. Sid is then attacked, and it's revealed that Culkin nerd is teamed up with Jill. They've been filming everything and intend to trace it all back to Trevor, who they've got tied up in the closet, and not in the sexy way. Now, I don't want to overly nitpick this. I only want this video to be like 4 hours, not like 5 hours. But these aren't exactly the two beefiest killers in the world. I'm sure they snuck up on some of the people like Trevor, but I'm surprised nobody just beat the shit out of them at some point. I mean, Jill probably weighs like 100 pounds, and Culkins aren't exactly known for their physical prowess. Oh. But then again, Jill shoots Trevor in both his dick head and his head. So, you know, guns make everything more lethal, I guess. Jill apparently just really wants to be famous, and that's why she's murdering everybody. And to be fair, if that's what it took for this channel to succeed, I would shoot Dave in his penis in a heartbeat. No hesitation. Like and subscribe and check out my Patreon, or Dave's penis gets it. In a bad way. I wouldn't survive a modern horror movie, if you catch my drift. Jill and Culkin do the same thing as the killers in the first movie and stab each other so they'll look innocent, but also like the first movie, Jill stabs a little too hard. Also, right in the heart. She wants to be the sole survivor and basically become the next Sid. She also stabs a rich Sid and frees Trevor and uses his hand to scratch her face. Then she fight clubs herself for a surprisingly long time. It kind of seems like Wes feels about the internet the way that 90s parents felt about his movies, which is kind of ironic.
He packed his suitcase this.
The cops show up and find everybody and everything seems to be going great for Jill. But then oops, turns out Sid isn't fully dead.
What?
So Jill goes to murder her in the hospital, but hold up, Jill. Who are they gonna believe is the killer? The featherweight prom queen looking chick who's clearly been beat to hell, or the potentially mentally unstable victim of at least 3 separate serial killer attempts on her life? I think Sid looks a lot more likely to be the killer than Jill.
What I do is I try not to think about me.
But whatever. Jill goes to kill Sid and Dewey realizes that Jill accidentally revealed that she knew about Gail's injury despite having no way of knowing, so he also runs to Sid's room only to get beaten unconscious with the shitter. Dewey is a pretty awful cop, guys. Then Gail walks in and is tackled by the horny deputy, and then Jill makes the deputy hand over her gun and then shoots just her, even though she should be shooting everybody in the room, but she doesn't. So Sid defibs her in the brain, which realistically should cause her body to seize and her to fire the gun at Gail, but whatever. This of course doesn't fully kill her, so they also have to shoot her. Oh, the deputy is fine because... And Sid is pretty dismissively sarcastic towards her dead cousin who turned out to be a serial killer.
I don't know about you, but I feel a whole lot better.
Because she's just very flippant about the whole unbelievably horrific situation. Credits!
It's like scary, but with complex emotional and thematic underpinnings. It's not just some schlocky cheeseball nonsense with wall-to-wall jump scares.
That sounds kind of boring.
And reboot. Scream 5 begins with this, a ringing phone? But this time it's being not answered by... Fine, by Jenna Ortega, okay? I don't see any way around it. It's Jenna Ortega, which makes this a video about Jenna Ortega. I feel ashamed. I feel dirty. God, I've already sold out so hard. What have we become, Dave? We're making Jenna Ortega content? What are we crap? Anyway, she texts with her friend Amber and tries to convince her to come hang out with the promise of an unlocked liquor cabinet. And I'm not entirely up to date on Gen Z lingo, but I think that's a reference to her vagina. Right, Dave? The liquor cabinet? You're always trying to get into those Gen Z's cabinets. As you might imagine, that works. And Amber says she'll come right over for some sips. And then the landline rings again, and this time she answers. Jenna Ortega does, because this video is about Jenna Ortega.
Is Christina there?
No.
And she and the voice we've come to know and love so well chat a bit about her mom and about how Jenna really prefers elevated horror like The Babadook to slashers like Stab.
It's like scary, but with complex emotional and thematic underpinnings. It's not just some schlocky cheeseball nonsense with wall-to-wall jump scares.
Then the killer says Jenna's character's name, Tara, and that freaks her out and causes her to lock the doors with a fancy Gen Z door locking app. Back in my day, the only way to keep out a serial killer was to lock every door by hand. Kids these days have it so easy when it comes to locking out serial killers.
That sounds kind of boring to me.
But not too easy, because the killer has apparently hacked Amber's phone and forces Tara to play a horror trivia game, because if she doesn't play, the killer will kill Amber. So she plays along, but not before name-dropping a handful of elevated horror movies that are, pretty good actually.
Scream 6.
Good for Tara, but also bad for Tara because she doesn't know shit about Stab and incorrectly guesses that there's only one killer in the first movie, so she runs outside with a knife to go save Amber, I guess, but oops, the killer is outside. But it's okay, because she beats the shit out of him. Per usual. Tara slams the door, but it also turns out the killer is also adept at Gen Z block app usage, and the two of them play lock tag with the app. He calls again, is like, bonus question, you got stabbed. She punches him pretty good, but then he throws her down and breaks her ankle. And she still kicks him somehow. And he stabs her a bunch. That's a scream, baby. And now we're outside a bowling alley watching a chick named Sam, who I bet has an incredible singing voice, popping some boner pills. Then Huey from The Boys sits down and is like, give me a kiss, yummy, yummy. And then she gets a phone call and a dude named Wes Hicks is like, hey, your sister was attacked, but she's alive. So Sam and Huey, here going by the name Richie because Jack Quaid has just got one of those faces that demands an E sound for his name.
Good luck getting it up now.
Well, they hit the road to Woodsboro, even though Sam and her sister are a bit estranged for some mysterious reason.
Boner pills.
On the way, Richie is just the silliest about the possibility of a loose serial killer who almost completely butchered Sam's sister.
You know what? That Jason guy, he's got some pretty solid ideas.
That must be what Sam loves about him, his silliness in the face of murder.
I mean, I've never seen Gone with the Wind either.
Don't smile at me, Dave. Look at the laptop. You don't look up. Oh, and here's our group of lovable, meta-minded misfits who just had their classes canceled because of the whole attempted murder thing. Because Woodsboro kids, they just never go to school. They learn everything they need to know in the School of Hard Stabs. Also, they die a lot, so learning math is probably like a waste of their time. As long as they can count to 20 dead friends or whatever. Anyway.
What the fuck?
So the kids are a hot boy, literally named Chad, his sister Mindy, his girlfriend Liv, the afro-stalked Amber, and the aforementioned Wes, who's the son of the last movie's horny deputy, who is now the horny sheriff.
Very funny.
And there's also this weird stalker boy just kind of wandering around because, you know, we got to think that some other people might be the killer before we, you know, get into the people who are almost definitely the killer.
Boner pills.
Sam and Richie finally arrive at the hospital to see Tara, and oh, everybody else is there too, and it's something of a reunion, and it feels pretty good considering Sam was at one time everybody here's sexy babysitter. We also learned that the reason Tara and Sam haven't talked in a while is because Tara ghosted the family when she turned 18, despite their father bailing when she was 13 and Tara was only 8. Also, apparently Amber is defensive of Tara and protects her from boys.
Look, guys, Tara's really tired. Maybe we should just give her some
boner pills.
I wish I had a friend like that. Dave, you don't protect me from any boys. You just like throwing boys at me. Eat up.
Yeah.
Then all these underage children head to a bar? Is that a typical thing kids do? I don't know. But Stalker Boy shows up again with a damn knife and gets into a scuffle with Hot Boy Chad, and the bar owner's like, get out of here. And like, yeah, they should get out of your establishment, you criminal.
Get out of here.
And no, I'm not just being a boomer here. In California, persons under 21 years of age may not enter and remain in any premises with a green-colored ABC license except on lawful business. Well, okay, now that it's said out loud, I guess that does make sense. I mean, there could be a lawful business all about playing pool and knife fighting, and I'm hoping to take over the family business one day. You know, breedings, billiards, and knifing. That's a joke. We might keep it, we might not. My dad's in the basement. We'll see if he thinks it's funny.
Get out of here.
Now they're outside, and the stalker pisses a bit and then gets his throat slit. This is another weird example of how sometimes the killer in these movies is a freaking precision assassin, and yet just like 5 minutes ago, they really struggled to kill a small Jenna Ortega-sized child. I guess serial killers don't value consistency like they did when I was a kid, where we had to walk up a hill both ways to stab a small child, and you know what? They never fought back. These Gen Z serial killers, it's like sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. But boomer serial killers, you remember them, Dave. They had integrity. They worked the same serial killer beat their whole lives. And you know, they were proud of it. What am I talking about, Dave?
The Babadook.
Back in the hospital, Sam pops a couple more
boner pills.
But uh-oh, Billy Loomis from the first movie appears in the mirror and asks when Sam is gonna tell Tara. Apparently she's taking antipsychotics, but they're not working great.
Antipsychotics aren't working as well as they used to, are they?
Then her phone rings and it's the killer. So, oops, the killer then attacks IRL. But because Sam is biologically female, she kind of beats the shit out of him and runs away right into a cop. But of course, the killer is gone. And most of the main cast starts accusing each other of maybe being the killer. And then horny sheriff shows up and is like, Sam, I think you suck, which is not very nice. And it's not even really very horny.
I just think you suck.
So Sam finally says, all right, Tara, here's the deal and the reason I bet that we're being attacked. When I was 13, I found some of Mom's diaries where she inexplicably recorded the fact that she was banging some dude in high school that wasn't our dad so hard that I was created. And I was pissed about this, so I yelled at Mom about it, but Dad heard, and then he left us forever. But Mom made me promise not to tell you. Oh, and also my dad was Billy Loomis.
And I went out and I started doing every boner that I could get my hands.
And like, Mommy, you should throw those diaries away. Burn them up! But I guess it's too late, and Tara is pissed that Sam kept the secret for so long, and she sort of throws her out of the hospital room. Sam and Richie then head to a trailer park to talk to old ass Dewey's old ass. He apparently spends his time watching Gail on TV because they're no longer together, and I guess there's nothing else good on porn. He initially doesn't want to talk to them, but he does anyway, because what else would be the point of the scene if he never talked to them?
Go away! Give you 2 minutes.
And he explains a bunch of rules about how the lover probably did it, and the killer is connected to the past, and the killer is also probably already part of the friend group. Now, I appreciate that the movie is still trying to be meta, but it's pretty insane to just say these things like there's some kind of fact. As if every serial killer in the world is like, gotta make sure to follow the horror movie rules. Murder is only fun if I adhere to strict guidelines.
Believe me, I know.
When they say, can we have help instead of all these rule explanations? Dewey says no, but I bet he will help in a minute. When they leave, Dewey calls Sidney Prescott, who apparently married the dreamy cop from Scream 3 and has 2 kids. And if anything, she's got an even more motherhood-enhanced dump truck butt. And Dewey warns her that it's happening again. He tells her not to come back to Woodsboro, and she says she won't, but again, I bet that she will. She also initiates a sext with Gail to warn and or titillate.
You know me.
Yeah.
Oh, and look.
I've decided to temporarily assist you in your investigation.
The children are at the twins' house, and wouldn't you know it, they're related to Randy because their mom is his sister from the 3rd movie. Sam admits her Loomis heritage, and everybody points out that the scroteless stalker guy from earlier was related to Shaggy from the 1st movie. And as such, this killer is clearly making a requel. And the conversation devolves into another argument about elevated horror and fan fiction and other internet-y concepts.
What's a Mary Sue?
You really don't want to know.
Instead of them all doing what normal people would do and going to hide in the bathroom with an AK-47 and shotgunning coffee and pissing into jars. Sam leaves and she's unsure what to do, so she starts with the man in the mirror. But he's asking her to change her ways. Like, literally no message could have been clearer. He's like, if she wants to make the world a better place, she needs to take a look at herself and then make a change. And accept that she's the daughter of a serial killer, so she should get out there and murder like the murderer. No! Elsewhere, horny sheriff hears a noise and immediately investigates it with a knife, but doesn't she have a gun? Doesn't matter, nothing's there.
That you, Tiger?
So she hops in her official cop car to go grab sushi, while her son does a sexy shower scene for once. Ah, say that while your mouth is just filling up with liquid like mine is. Finally, some wet boy action. Gen Z has finally arrived.
Obviously.
And naturally, the killer calls her and is like, I'm gonna kill your son. And she's like, ah, damn, don't do that. So she rushes home, but oops, the killer stabs her in the tummy in broad daylight. Then the killer spends what feels like an hour not stabbing the son until, oh. Also, I forgot to mention that the horny sheriff still makes lemon squares. Or she used to. Oh my God. She loved those damn squares of lemon that may or may not have tasted like ass. So, okay, now Sam and Dewey show up to the crime scene, and then Gail shows up and she hits Dewey, and the two expositionally argue about how they apparently moved to New York City, and Dewey literally left in the middle of the night after 2 months. They were married for like 15 years, and he just bounced because he hated New York City without talking to Gail about it? Well, Dewey's a piece of shit.
I made my choice.
But as they're explaining their shared history, in case anybody was curious, Sam realizes that the cops that are supposed to be protecting her sister at the hospital have shown up to this crime scene, leaving Tara undefended because the cops in this town are still shockingly bad at their job after decades of serial killings. Or maybe there are so many killings because the cops are incompetent. This movie poses some deep philosophical questions that'll be of interest at the next town budget review. Tara, for her part, also realizes this might pose some problems, and so she slowly, painfully, agonizingly pulls herself out of bed and wheelchairs down the hall at an excruciating, like, 3 RPMs at best. And her fears are confirmed when she sees the dead security guard exactly at the movie's 1 hour mark. Damn, that's tight script writing.
Yeah, I mean, I think I know what you're referring to.
Richie shows up and Tara slaps him with a phone. Ow! And then he gets fully knocked out by Ghostface, who who then activates a Batfleck-esque voice modulator in their suit or whatever.
Why did you say that name?
And calls Sam and says some scary things, even though his victim is Gen C, and he could have just yelled adulting at her for a few minutes and it would have had the same effect.
I'm an adult, and you can't make me not cry.
But then Dewey and Sam show up in the elevator, and Dewey demonstrates after all this time that he's still a pretty horrible shot. He and Ghostface fight a bit, and then he finally shoots the goober down, and they're all about to leave, and Dewey's like, ah, crap, I forgot to shoot them in the head. So he decides to go back, and naturally, that's what he gets for leaving Gail in the middle of the night. Time warp! I'm returning to this scene after we learn who the killer is, and like, I doubt it. Time warp! Anyway, this causes Gail outside to be very sad in very slow motion. It also causes I came as soon as I could. Sid and Gail run into Sam and Tara, who are getting the hell out of Woodsboro, and Sid is like, hey, I get wanting to leave, but the only way to actually stop this guy is to murder him to death. Can you help us? And Sam is like, no, I'm leaving. And to be fair, it does feel a little weird to recruit a random girl to help you murder a murderer, but I guess they're probably mostly intending to use her as bait, especially seeing as her.
I put a tracker on her car.
I'm sure they'll get an opportunity to collaborate in the near future. On the way, Tara realizes she forgot her inhaler, and they'll need to grab a backup from Amber's house, which is currently hosting one of those insanely dope-ass high school parties, but I can't believe nobody has footloosed the shit out of Woodsboro yet.
Amen.
Teens get butchered here all the time, and especially at parties. Just feels like there'd be stricter enforcement of underage drinking and unsupervised party laws in this town. But then again, teens are allowed to just chill in bars and have knife fights, so I guess nobody really cares about the kids, which actually might be the saddest element of this whole series. It turns out that the real killer was parental neglect. Damn, Dave, this is elevated horror. Suck my butt, Babadook. It follows my neck.
No, shut up.
Anyway, as expected, there are several attacks at the party, including Chad, who initially won't have sex upstairs alone with his girlfriend because he's worried that she's the killer.
The safest option is to be down here with all the people.
But then immediately agrees to wander around outside in the dark by himself, looking for her, and what do you know? But then he gets away, but then again, right as Sam, Tara, and Richie show up to the party. Side note, Tara seems very highly functioning considering last night she could barely wheelchair without screaming in pain and then was attacked again, but now she can just walk with a single crutch? She's got them Wolverine bones.
Pills.
And as soon as they walk in the door, Amber shuts down the whole party and sends everybody home, which seems entirely unhelpful. I get that it's supposed to be for Tara's safety in case one of them is the killer, but obviously it'd be a hell of a lot safer if there were more human shields. I mean, people around. And also, it's not like the killer's gonna go home. He's not gonna be thwarted like, damn it. Well, she said to go home. I guess I can't murder any more hot teens.
You're a selfish bitch.
Then they realized, oh, shit, they're in Stu's house from the first film, i.e. the house where everybody got attacked and stabbed and shit. And what do you know? The killer attacks Mindy. Look behind you. And everybody starts freaking out until...
Welcome to Act 3.
So they know she's the killer. But Richie reminds Sam there's always two killers. Except for, of course, Scream 3. So not always, Richie. Sam is now slightly worried that her sister's one of the other killers, even though, like, it'd be pretty weird to break her ankle right at the beginning of the spree. She'd be pretty ineffective for everything to come. Also, Gail and Sydney show up, both armed, and Amber kind of runs outside and pretends to be injured, but almost immediately gives up on that and just shoots Gail and runs back inside. Sid leaves Gail to tend to her gaping wound and enters the house. Then she wanders around the house, shooting preemptively through doors.
I'm still alive, very badly injured.
Until she eventually...
Put your hands out! Show me your hands!
Almost immediately, Amber, who apparently ran away and did a quick change to look like the killer again for literally no reason other than maybe to continue the mystique of there maybe being more than one killer, attacks from another door, and they fall off the balcony together.
I think my legs might be broken.
And then a few minutes later, twist! Turns out Richie is the other killer, like Dewey pretty much flat out said at the beginning of the movie. Then Amber pulls off the mask that she didn't need to wear in the first place, and the two admit that this whole thing was basically an attempt to create a new, decent plot for Stab 9 because the Stab series sucks now and they're quite literally toxic fans who met on Reddit. Just as a reminder, the Stab series started out based on real events until Sid sued their lemon square ass-tasting asses, and the Stab movies became just another piece of fiction that now, according to the killers, sucks. But they could just hire better writers. Movies don't have to be based on real events to be good. What's more, fiction always has the option of adding a skateboarding T-Rex to the plot. My point is, these kids are very stupid. They bring in wounded Gale and explain they're gonna frame Sam as the villain because of her serial killer heritage, and wouldn't that be dope for the Stab 9? Sid tries to do something but gets stabbed pretty good. And then they say what I always say when I'd play with army men as a kid.
Gotta go start staging the body.
Except then, somehow, the broken-legged, crippled Tara brains Amber with a crutch. And Sam bites Richie in his wound. And then Sid and Gale confront Amber, who tries to defuse the situation by yelling what I always yell when I got caught praising the Conflict Desert Storm games as a kid.
It was the message board. I was radicalized.
I didn't realize how many stabs there were until I said stab 300 times. And then Gale headbutts Amber and sets her on fire because of a series of wacky Final Destination-esque circumstances. And then Sam attacks Richie again and they fall downstairs and she ends up stabbing him approximately 3,000 times, which is probably a metaphor, and it's legitimately the scariest moment of the entire franchise. Her dad would be so proud. The four surviving ladies headshot Amber before leaving, and it turns out that Mindy and Chad also both somehow survived, and Sam asks Sid if she's gonna be okay, and Sid is like, yeah, eventually, except, no, I don't think so. Because firstly, Sid has had to deal with this literally 5 times now. So it's not like these attacks will ever end. And secondly, Sam isn't just going to have to deal with the trauma of being attacked or whatever. She still hallucinates her serial killer dad everywhere. And also she just butchered a guy with a knife with absolutely zero remorse. She's extremely screwed up and it's only gonna get worse. Movie for Wes. Before the time warp, quick question. How was Amber able to kick Dewey's ass in a one-on-one fight in the hospital? She is a small teen girl, and Dewey used to be a large man. I don't know. Bye, Dewey. C-spot run.
If I kill Dave in here, that should count, right? Because it's like an internet video, and, you know, we're trying to kill Dave, so this should count. All right, aliens, kill Dave for me. We did it! Wait.
That definitely doesn't count.
What do you mean that doesn't count? I killed Dave. He's dead. Dave is dead. It's official.
Video game is not the same as real Dave. I want real Dave dead.
Fine.
It never works out for the dipshit in the mask.
My viewing of Scream 6 opened with an awkward thank you from Courtney Cox and... yeah, Jenna Ortega. Jenna Ortega, SEO. I'm talking about it. Give me 1 million views. Apparently, I'm doubling down on making a Jenna Ortega video because I'm filthy.
If we really are making a good, dirty movie, I don't want to just carry the equipment.
But anyway, these two actresses personally thanked me for watching the movie in theaters, like Vin Diesel did 2 years ago, but... the movies. Is that unique anymore? I mean, granted, there were 3 total people in my theater, but is anybody more likely to watch movies in theaters if Jenna Ortega thanks them while clearly reading from a teleprompter? I mean, Samara Weaving, maybe.
You animal, you piece of shit, little tiny dick licker f***ing asshole f***ing eye.
We'll see you soon.
Anyway, after that weirdness, we get some title cards and phone ringing with mad reverb and light screaming, but twist. The phone is just a stupid person calling for a presumably stupid reservation. There is no cold open with a phone in a house. Apparently, times have changed. Give or take, Scream 3's cold open.
Oh, well, thank you.
We see Samara Weaving, also known by me as one of my generation's greatest Scream queens, sitting at the fancy bar looking nervous, which is weird because she looks exactly like Samara Weaving. And apparently her date or whatever is late, and he calls her to say, yeah, he's late.
Yes.
Samara speaks to him in a nervous Australian accent, which like, swoon.
I'm very sweaty.
And she goes outside to try and help this dumbass dude using his phone to ask for directions instead of 4 directions. But of course, the voice switches to Ghostface, and he appears and he stabs Samara extremely brutally to death in the back alley, which, not swoon.
It's a bit uncomfortable, isn't it?
And the kill itself isn't crazy inventive, but the physicality of it, paired with some gnarly sound effects, really sells it. Sort of how, like, sometimes you're not sold on wanting to eat a certain food item that seems pretty normal until you hear a woman orgasm over it.
Oh.
Anyway, Ghostface removes his mask to reveal he's the loser dude from the most recent Spider-Man.
What's up, dickwad?
And apparently he attends Blackmore University, which is not real, but is set in New York City, which Dave claims is real.
There is nothing like New York in the spring. It's
Loser bumps into Tara. You know, Jenna Ortega.
No, I wasn't.
And I guess they know each other. She's headed to a frat party. He's like, you should get Sam to go. And she's like, no. So he goes back to his apartment to hang out with his roommate, Greg. But Greg no there. Where Greg? Greg! Which is also the name of my dad. He might think I'm calling him because he's in the basement.
Greg reading.
Anyway, the loser, named Jason, presumably an Argonauts reference,
It might be.
gets a phone call, ostensibly from Greg, but the voice is ghost voicing. As it turns out, Greg and Jason are big Stab fans, and they're hoping to finish creating the necessary conditions for Richie's movie by murdering Tara and Sam. And Jason wasn't supposed to murder anybody yet, and Samara Weaving was just their film studies professor, which, hey, I minored in film studies. I could have had Samara Weaving as a professor. Damn it, why did I go to a fake college in a fake city?
Are you kidding me?
But Jason wanted to do a trial murder run, and Greg is like, tell me about it. So Jason does tell him about it while watching Jason Takes Manhattan.
Welcome to New York.
Eventually, Jason is like, I feel like you're not Greg, because I'm looking at Greg and he's dismembered and stuffed in my fridge right now. Oh, and I'm also being stabbed to death. Then we cut harder than Ghostface on a black diamond, which is a skiing joke I made. Why did I make a skiing joke? It was a late night.
My ankles are broken!
To Sam chatting with a therapist who's like, tell me all your secrets. Sam's like, fine, here are all my secrets. And the therapist is like, good God, too many secrets. Get out of here, you're freaking me out. So she heads home to her quadruple locked apartment to catch her roommate, Quinn, finishing up a wet round of sex. Quinn spills that Tara went to a frat party and Sam's like, oh my God, frat parties are bad. And she stares at a shirtless hot guy in the window next door for a second and then runs out to go find Tara at the bad frat party. And at that bad frat party, Tara gets shwasted and almost Captain hooks up with an upperclassman. But Mindy and Chad confront the beefy bad dude long enough for Sam to run in the door and tase him right in his scrotum. Tara and Sam spat a bit before some random woman throws Diet Cherry Coke on Sam and says, actually, Richie is innocent. And Sam, you're the one who murdered everybody in the last movie, because apparently that's a very popular internet conspiracy theory. And I guess people in this universe are susceptible to internet misinformation. Pfft, sucks to live in that world.
Rats will dance for money if you pay them. And if they're kind of like this, you know, and just have no sense of rhythm, you owe them like $300.
Then we get an Olivia Rodrigo needle drop that I almost certainly can't play without being demonetized, and it's not worth it. So here's 5 seconds of a different song playing over something completely unrelated. Back at their apartment, Quinn mentions having lost her brother, and Tara and Chad share an intimate moment that gets aborted harder than my last Twitch run-through of XCOM 2 on Legendary Iron Man.
Oh my God.
I know you thought I was gonna make a really spicy joke here, but I didn't. That's on you, that's not on me. In the hallway downstairs, Sam actually makes out with the hot guy from next door because they're secretly hooking up, and she doesn't want everybody to know because...
The movies.
Everybody watches a news broadcast about dead Jason and dead Greg, and Sam's like, that's it, we're leaving town. But then Dermot Mulroney calls, he's like, yeah, Sam, we found your driver's license at the crime scene. Don't leave town. Also come down to the police station. I'm a cop, and also the father of Quinn. Weirdly, I've been told more than once that I look like Dermot Mulroney, because it's clear to me that I've really blossomed into one of those white guys that looks like all the other white guys. I've been compared to Mulroney, Charlie Day, Jake Johnson, Will Wheaton, Daniel Radcliffe, and probably 100 other dudes whose defining physical traits are white, dude, has brown hair, big fat juicy hog. Is it that noticeable? On the way to the precinct, Sam receives a call from Richie's phone, which is bad because he's dead. And they're attacked by Ghostface, which is bad because he wants to make them dead. And as you'd expect though, Tara just elbows Ghostface into some bikes. They run into a bodega and are like, please help. Then Ghostface comes in and kills all the characters with a penis and grabs a shotgun, which is actually pretty tight. Ghostface doesn't usually have a shotgun, so that's tight. Very bussin'. The ladies tip over the would-be serial killer with just like a shit ton of corn chips. And then Ghostface flees the scene as cops arrive. You never bring a shotgun to a corn chip fight. They eventually get to the precinct, and it turns out that a mask was left at the first crime scene with Richie's DNA on it, suggesting, I believe, that he jizzed in the mask, which I'm really hoping isn't a crime, for unrelated reasons. Then Kirby from the fourth movie shows up and is like, I'm in the FBI now. And also I'm not dead somehow, though I still look like everybody's hot mom. Oh, and they've discovered another mask with jizz from the killers in the fourth movie. So I guess this guy's got jizzy masks from the entire series lore. Very cool, very thorough, very sticky.
It's gonna keep coming.
Gail's outside the precinct and Sam tries to punch her but misses, but then Tara tries and connects. They're mad at Gail because she wrote another book about the last movie because I guess with Dewey fully dead, she's gotta make that money somehow. Might as well milk your ex-husband's brutal murder at the hands of like a teen girl for a couple bucks.
That's why I'm gonna shoot you in the fucking head.
Gail also helpfully mentions that Sydney will not be coming help because she deserves a happy ending and wasn't offered enough money by the producers. It's a very Bryan from Fast and the Furious moment, and I'm not crying.
I used to say the movies.
And on a side note, Ghostface butchers the therapist and steals Sam's file.
Just killing people for killing's sake.
The four friends, along with Chad's new pasty roommate, Avatar 2 Spider. You think he's CG'd into this movie?
What do you think?
Also, Mindy's new lover is there, and yeah, Quinn's there, and they sit outside and they hash out the rules of what happens when a film series becomes a franchise, which I guess is now the case with Scream, or in their world, Stab. The rules are not really that different from most of the other movies. They're 1, bigger than the last movie. You know, the kills are bigger, the budget's bigger, which they've already done that one. And then 2, expect the opposite of the last movie, which I guess is new. 3, no one is safe, which we've also already done. And then 4, even the main characters are expendable because they're no longer necessary to the franchise in the same way. And yeah, we've kind of covered that too.
We are continuing to top what came before.
With that in mind, they all sort of accuse each other of possibly being the killer, and per usual, they don't land on any satisfactory answers. They head back to Sam and Tara's place, and Chad rebrands the survivors of the last movie as the Core 4, which is very silly. The news says Sam remains the prime suspect, which is less silly, and also that Ghostface mask sales are skyrocketing, presumably largely among jizz enthusiasts. Also, this is a legitimate question. Did Hitler novelty stash sales go through the roof during World War II, or silly serial killer glasses when Dahmer was at large? Just feels particularly macabre to celebrate a monster in the middle of their spree, especially considering Ghostface-related murder sprees have been on and off for like 30 years. It's not like we're seeing a ton of Taliban cosplayers dicking around the Taco Bell on Halloween. Whatever. That's not as disturbing as Ghostface suddenly appearing in Quinn's room. She doesn't notice, of course, so hot neighbor boy, named Danny by the way, does everything he can to get Sam's attention in a very rom-com-esque scene of heightened silliness and misunderstandings. But eventually he does get her attention, but not before Quinn and the dude that she was wet sexing are murdered.
Just killing people for killing's sake.
Mindy and her girlfriend get knifed to varying degrees, and Chad and Tara book it out into the hallway and they get locked out. And weirdly, the knives in the apartment are all gone, so Sam just bashes Ghostface with the knife holder block thing, and everybody who's still alive and in the apartment attempt to escape to Danny's via horizontal ladder, which is actually a pretty inspired set piece, even if realistically, it'd probably make more sense to just run out the door, not actively being slammed into by Ghostface. Or could Danny extend the ladder and then drop it over to their side? Maybe not. But why does he have a fully extendable ladder of that size just sitting in his like 5th floor New York City apartment? What exactly does he use it for? Are his countertops just so high? Anyway, Mindy and Sam get across, but Mindy's girlfriend gets unceremoniously dumped off the ladder by Ghostface after quite a bit of jiggling and jostling. Feels like Ghostface should have just pulled the ladder into their window or shoved it out their window rather than try to tip it, but whatever, it works. Bye, girlfriend!
We are continuing to top what came before.
This makes Sam smoke a ciggy. The next morning, Cop Daddy's being a real mopey whiner about the whole dead daughter thing, and also because he got pulled off the case. But that's okay, because Gail shows up and is like, I'm a dope-ass investigative reporter, and I found the lead.
A shrine.
So they, and also Kirby, who I guess is there, visit a weird ghost-faced shrine in an abandoned movie theater. Apparently it belongs to Greg and Jason, because apparently Greg and Jason were absolutely freaking loaded. They somehow acquired important evidence from every single previous murder, including bloody knives and moist masks, and it suggested they probably bought off cops to acquire said evidence, not just in Woodsboro, but also in Los Angeles, and that's it. Those are the only two ones.
Setting it in New York adds so much.
And I assume renting even an abandoned movie theater in New York City isn't cheap. Maybe they made a lot of money on crypto or something. Hopefully they were massacred before the bottom fell out. RIP FTX!
Because FTX is such a dominant player.
At this point, the power in the theater where I was watching the movie failed, and the lights and the sound started flickering and cutting in and out and going in reverse. For a brief moment, I thought this was some kind of intentional upping of the franchise's meta-ness, and I was like, nice. And then it went on for a bit too long, and I thought, ooh, maybe some weirdo is gonna murder me, because that is something that happens in theaters, because America is awesome. And I was like, I hope not. I don't want to die watching a Jenna Ortega video. What a lame way to try and get some clicks. It freaked me out, man. It also freaked out the other two people in the theater who freaking booked it into the hallway. That's where the killer is. There's an exit. Eventually it was all resolved, but not before I peed just a little bit.
There's a relentlessness that is unique to this specific ghost face.
Is that my dad? Hey, what's up?
Sorry, I was trying to be sneaky.
No, it's fine. I actually saw you in the mirror. I saw a ghostly visage.
Greg, read it.
Anyway, Mindy and Kirby argue about which Friday the 13th is the best, and Mindy thinks 2 and Kirby thinks 4, but both of those are terrible. Acceptable answers are 1, 6, and 10. Any other answer is nonsense. You'll see. Kirby explains that she died for 4 minutes, but only 4 minutes way back in the 4th movie, so that's how she's alive now. 4 minutes of being dead is nothing. It's once you're past 6 minutes of being full dead that you need to be like, damn, we might be in trouble here.
Look who knows so much.
But anyway, wandering around this self-congratulatory Scream shrine doesn't really do anything for the plot or their investigation per se, so the characters set up a trace the call sting like they did in Scream 2, and they successfully trace Ghostface to Gail's apartment, where he murders Gail's hot new boyfriend and fights Gail for maybe an hour. The killer also calls Gail and is like, we've never talked on the phone before. And how do they know that? I mean, I guess that's a thing it's possible to know, but the killer gets killed in basically every single movie. It's not just one dude being resurrected over and over again. Like, again, the guy in the next video. So whoever this Ghostface is would have to know that Gail's never been called by a previous killer, which...
You know you're like the 10th guy to try this, right?
I mean, it's true, but it seems like it would be a really hard thing to determine unless Gail made a big point of that in her most recent book. I don't know, I've spent too long on this point.
There's never been one like me.
Gail gets stabbed and appears to die, but of course, as the only legacy character in the movie still receiving a paycheck, she survives off screen. Probably only died for like 3 minutes, which is basically nothing. I once accidentally put anthrax on my pizza instead of Parmesan, and I fully died for 3 minutes, but 7 months later, I was totally fine.
Well, it just so happens that your friend here is only mostly
John C. Did you know that Cracked had an anthrax attack when the anthrax stuff was happening? Anyway, Sam wants to give herself up to Ghostface to end the madness, but everybody else says, don't do that. So she says, okay, but then she does decide to fake give herself up in the movie theater, which is probably what she should have pitched in the first place. They all head to the theater, but oops, Mindy and Spider are too slow and end up on a different subway train, and because it's Halloween, it looks like every single person on the train is Ghostface, and yep, one of them is, in fact, Ghostface. And Mindy gets stabbed, but Spider pulls her off the train, and per usual, it looks like she'll survive. Man, Mindy gets stabbed a lot. Feels like she should have a personal police detail at this point. This is at least the 3rd brutal stabbing she's endured in like 6 months? A year? I've only had 2, and I run with scissors all the time. The rest of the crew makes it to the theater relatively unstabbed, and Kirby is like, I made this place into a kill box, and Ghostface will totally get trapped in this cage here, and then I'll kill box him.
Charles, why have we got that cage? Security?
And then Sam's phone rings and Cop Daddy is like, Kirby was fired by the FBI 2 months ago for being a crazy kill box lady. And Sam's like, oh no, maybe this has become my kill box. And Dave, if I'm up to date on my Gen Z, I think that's another vagina euphemism. I'll be busting in that kill box?
So what's the point in having it if we're not gonna use it.
Meanwhile, Tara and Chad finally dance their tongues through each other's young mouths, and Tara's like, you should have done that a long time ago. And maybe, but she's a college freshman. That's only October, so she probably didn't turn 18 particularly long ago. But then again, I'm sure Chad knows all the statutory rape laws. It's part of the deal when you're named Chad.
You actually bring up a very good point.
Unfortunately, they never get a chance to technically, legally dance their hands through each other's pants because Tara gets stabbed in the back, but by like a knife. And Chad bashes Ghostface with an old camera, which should be enough to kill him, but it's not. And they're attacked by two Ghostfaces who stab Chad 7,000 times, but notably avoid any major organs or arteries because Ghostface has never been particularly surgical. Tara runs back to Sam, and they go back to back with bricks, like the classic video game Army of Two, the 40th Day, but again with bricks, which I think is only in the DLC. Oh, and then Kirby shows up and she's been slashed, and Cop Daddy shows up too, and it's like, who is good? Who is bad? And then Cop Daddy shoots Kirby, so I guess he's bad. And it's revealed, actually, there are 3 ghost faces. It's bigger, which they said it would be. And 3 is the opposite of 2, and they had 2 in the last movie. So, firstly, Cop Daddy is in on it, and it turns out that he and Quinn faked her death, so she is in on it, and it turns out that Spider is Quinn's brother and Cop Daddy's son, and all of them are related to Richie. They've been orchestrating things behind the scenes to get Sam framed as the Ghostface killer once and for all, to ultimately finish Richie's proposed movie plot because this is a very supportive family, and Richie was apparently great at selling his specific vision. And the reason the family murdered Greg and Jason was because they were gonna murder Sam and ruin everything for them. This theater is actually Richie's big shrine, and they just pushed the papers around to make it look like Greg and Jason owned it because... Twist? Hey, side note, it's crazy how good basically every single Ghostface killer is at acting. I don't mean the actors, I mean the characters. Like, Dermot's over here fully selling his overwhelming grief stemming from the death of his only daughter, and in basically every movie, the killer is always somebody close to everybody else, so they have to convince people of all sorts of emotions that they don't feel for a long time.
You are my boner pals.
It just seems tricky. We need a bunch of mid-movie Marvel-esque one-shots about the acting Ghostfaces who are immediately stabbed to death by Sidney because they weren't even remotely convincing for a full feature-length film.
Well, we don't even have another chair here.
Hey, you want to be my friend? And they're like, no.
We all miss him.
Anyway, once the reveals are all revealed, they fight. A lot of people get stabbed, as they're wont to do, but eventually Tara stabs Spider literally inside of his mouth, and Sam shoots Quinn right in her head. Sam and Tara sort of disappear to apparently grab a voice modulator from somewhere and haunt Cop Daddy for a bit with a scary phone call.
Can I keep you?
And then Sam, who apparently left to get dressed up as Ghostface, shows up and stabs Dermot like 1,000 times and fully kills him for more than 6 minutes. And then Spider, who again was stabbed 1,000 times before, again, gets stabbed right in his big wet mouth, his pretty wet mouth. He shows up so he could be killed by Kirby with a TV, who has herself been stabbed and shot 1,000 times. I mean, this is basically the end of a Marvel movie. It's all these invincible people just sort of like, you know, getting in each other's mouths. I watch Marvel movies on the internet. I don't know if they're canonical. Anyway, they wander outside, and yeah, Mindy and Chad are both alive. And basically, everybody is alive. Literally not a single main character died. That is shockingly tame for a horror movie. I think the only actual non-asshole victims who died were Mindy's girlfriend and Samara Weaving, who should never die in a movie or in real life. We must protect her.
Is there anything else I can help you with?
Yeah, you go yourself, Justin!
Everybody's apparently just coated in plot armor now. How very latter seasons of Game of Thrones.
Okay, you still need to kill Dave.
No, I know. I'll
kill Dave.
I'll do it right now.
Kill Dave.
I'll do it. I just gotta get something. It's just down here. Don't worry about it. It's just Dave?